Hello, everyone. I'm David. He's Alex, and we are A Winner Is You. That's right, folks. We are back in the saddle once again this week with yet another pivot. We had planned to bring you a deep dive into Silent Hill 2 remake, but instead, you're going to have to make do with it. Well, you're going to have to live with it, I guess. Maybe James would live with it. We'll see if he lives with it by the end or how we feel about that. Anyway, you're going to
not in canon.
No, you're going to have to live with the OG Silent Hill 2. How are you today, Alex? Suitably disturbed and triggered by the harrowing events in Silent Hill 2, I hope?
Pretty much, yeah.
I like it.
My alcoholic.
I'm going to give you credit and say this is entirely deliberate. That another name for mental health issues is the black dog, one of which you have sitting right behind you this evening. So that is a nice piece of what is it? Subliminal messaging you've got going on here.
Well, I didn't realise I was doing that, but that's what the black dog.
Yeah,
interesting. Never heard of that.
Oh, have you not? I wonder if it's a Scottish thing.
Well, have you worked in that industry?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so maybe
jobs after uni.
Could be an insider term.
You were about to tell me what you were drinking.
Yeah, I'm drinking the most ludicrous, upbeat, silly, childish beer possible to try and stave off the existential crisis this game may bring out in certain people. So this is a vanilla Coke sour beer.
Oh my god! Well, I'm joining you this evening. My Whiskey Club bottle got delivered today, and it came with a little special bottle. It's called a Super Blend. I'm actually not sure what to expect of this. So yeah, the bottle I did get looks very nice. Haven't tried it yet, but I'll leave that for another day. This one is a Super Blend. So basically, when you're blending whiskies, they tend to take things from sort of similar areas. And why you would blend a whiskey is to take
I was just going to ask that.
Prominent flavors from each. So like say if there's a single malt that's known for its peaty flavor, if there's one that's known for its sweetness, and if there's one that's known for its, medicinal properties, you would sort of take different flavors and mix them together to create a flavor that might be more palatable to someone. I always think, I don't know much about blends. I feel much more comfortable talking about single malts, but I would assume if you're wanting to get into whiskey, a good blend might be a good place to start because it's a sort of tailored flavour that may be less
whiskey flavoured.
Yeah, maybe. So this one's a super blend. So it's a blend of whiskies from different origins. So they start with a whiskey from Scotland, and then they breed a new breed of distillery from England and Germany, and an experimental project from the USA. A maverick Irish producer with a rebellious spirit. Each cask chosen solely for flavour. This is whiskey free from all geographical constraints, blended across borders. So I'm interested to taste this one.
Free from geographical constraints.
Yes.
Because we like whiskey without borders.
It's flavour profile is meant to be balanced. So yeah, that's what's going to get me through the podcast this evening. Have you been playing anything that isn't Silent Hill 2 recently?
Played a lot more Pizza Tower. I believe.
Yes, you've been recognising that. Recommending that. I've got that downloaded on my Steam Deck to give that a go.
Oh, lovely. Yes, that is. I think I'm on the last boss of that. There may be more afterwards, but I definitely. Oh, there are boss fights in it, yeah, and they're quite hard as well.
Excellent.
So I think I'm on the last boss of that, and I have started Yakuza 5.
Nice.
Because the Yakuza TV show is starting tomorrow.
Is it an
Prime
anime or is it a TV?
Oh, it's a live action.
Oh, excellent! That might be fun.
It's a live action in which the people behind the show and the games have basically all said that Kiryu's story or Kiryu's arc in Yakuza's 0 to 6 is quite perfect and will therefore be a waste of time to tell in the TV show. So
yeah, I think that's
totally new story. Kiryu is going to be very different, apparently.
Oh, so Kiryu is in it.
Yeah, so is
main character. No.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I reckon a live action sort of Japanese gangster sort of Yakuza thing with a bit of comedy in is not a bad.
I don't know it's going to have the comedy in it. That's where I worry.
Oh, right. Okay. I mean, but basically what I'm saying is it's not a bad elevator pitch for a TV show. I think it.
I'll send you the trailer. See if you see what you think about it, because it's the trailers look pretty good. It's going to be gritty from start to finish, I think. So yeah, Yakuza 5. For some reason, Kiryu's a taxi driver now, and
Right.
I've heard that number 5 is the longest of all of the games.
Oh, they're all long. So
I mean, they are all long. Yeah. So I'm trying to play them all in order, even though there are newer, shinier ones that I'm desperate to get my hands on. But I need breaks. I think I finished 4 so earlier this year, like right at the beginning of the year, maybe. And it was very funny to see the start of this game center around, being a taxi driver. And there are obviously side missions in which you drive the taxi, and you have to drive the taxi. Not crazy taxi, sensible taxi. So you actually get penalized if you don't stop at traffic lights, if you don't signal for a turn, if you swerve too much or accelerate too fast, it like docks you points. We've all
played GTA like that, haven't we, at some point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have. Well, I mean, did LA Noire make you do that?
I certainly did not.
Did it?
No, I think it. Okay. I don't know. I feel like the vibe encouraged you to do that, but I was.
It's sort of like police don't break the rules, so don't go through red lights and stuff. But I don't think that punished you. But yeah, this one actually does. So that was what a weird change of pace. Just it's that, and then if I get bored of that, I'll just walk out the door and beat the shit out of somebody with a bicycle.
Again, I'm repeating myself. I am fully up for things like that because I like a game that you can just sort of. Are they missions, or can you just go and do some taxi driving?
Bit of both.
Yeah, because I like the idea that you can just sort of get in and do some actual taxi driving if you just want to be in that world. I think I say this every time we talk about an open world game. It's what I like about them.
Yeah. Well, this is like the ultimate weeb virtual tourism game, isn't it? Where it's set in areas that are very familiar or similar to places like Tokyo. This is I don't actually remember where this one is set. This is in a totally new area, so it's quite nice to sort of drive around that slowly. But it seemed to be that after like 5 of those ones where you actually had to do the driving, it then sort of split the missions I could take between racing on a highway and then souping up my car and putting like decals all over it, or being a taxi driver, but it had to then focus on like just having conversations with the people in the back of the car and trying not to upset them versus actually driving the car anymore. And I was quite getting into like learning how to be a nice, pleasant driver in Japan.
Yeah.
Luckily they drive on the left, so that helped. But no, now I'm just conversationalist in a taxi instead. So that's what I've been doing.
If ever a game needed a connect, so you could have small talk with your passenger, they would go off.
Yeah.
Have you been busy today? And you'd be like, "Yep." And
that'd be great if I could, like old same studio, obviously Binary Domain. We had to talk to your squad mates. Headset on. Talk to Big Bo. Tell me more. Yeah. So very therapeutic game for me. Nice. Just come home from a hard day at work. A day at work, and just batter the shit out of blokes in the street. It's great because they all start on you, so it's totally justified.
It's
every single
like
time you
one
take
of your previous jobs, I guess. You just
that just happened on site, so that just happened at the office. That was great. That was I mean, using a coffee tin to beat the shit out of someone, as one of my ex-managers did, is very Yakuza. It's very Kiryu. That is.
It is very. Maybe that's what he's gone off. Maybe see if he turns up in this Yakuza live action show. You'll have
just
completely
well, just what a wild notion that you get yourself into a fight in the street and the dude immediately picks up a bike or a traffic cone or just like a flag from somewhere and just starts wailing on you with it. Like it almost like Kiryu doesn't really fight fair if you don't want him to.
No,
it's quite funny. Like all these dudes trying to like shake him down and he just pulls a baseball bat out of his jacket and just starts beating the living piss out of him. It's great.
Yeah.
But the bicycle thing, I always think is hilarious. Like, if someone actually picked up a bike and twatted you with it, or even just walked towards you, you would properly fear for your life.
Am I remembering the wrong game? But the other one I enjoy is if you can pick up a bench and smack someone with that. I'm always a fan of that. Maybe that's Dead Rising.
You can do that in Dead Rising, yeah.
I think those are the two that I think just they do not fit with the idea of just fighting with someone. Like bats sort of fit, like even a trash can to an extent.
Yeah.
But a bench and a bike are just comedy gold.
Yeah.
Alex,
What have you been doing other than Silent Hill?
Well,
Or is
not
there
really
nothing?
anything. Just Silent Hill, basically. I've been sort of dawdling about. Well, tried to play the remake. Didn't manage very well but I do see they've released a patch that is meant to address the stuff.
Didn't make any difference for me.
Oh, did it not? Okay. Well, I'll give it
No.
a go. See how I get on. But that
I did doubling my RAM because it's so poorly optimized.
It's such a
It just
shame.
runs like gash,
I
and
loved
we're
what
not.
I played of it.
I really want to play it. I'm desperate to play it, but I wasted so much money on getting the PC version, which was cheaper than PS5, but then having to pay 50 quid to have 32 gig of RAM did absolutely nothing. I can get a base 60 on low settings in performance mode, but so it looks terrible anyway. And then, but if ever I get into a fight with more than one thing on screen, that's it. It just tanks down to 40. It's just awful. Like my PC should be able to handle that.
Oh yeah, it should be. But yeah, we've talked ad nauseum at our combined frustrations at the state of the modern games industry and releasing broken games and expecting people to pay money for them.
Apparently, they took out the scene where Pyramid Head's giving the mannequins some very unwanted D. So,
okay. Well, it's 2024, I guess. That seems like I think it's quite an important scene, but
I was going to say it's quite fundamental.
I mean, it's just that's on brand for 2024. People get a bit overly precious about things.
Sweet baby ink or whatever it is.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so I've not been playing that. I'm back.
No.
I'm back on my shit of wanting to play Skyrim again. So I sort of have been dabbling with that.
Right,
doing the same missions for like the 100th time until I inevitably fall off. So yeah, I've been messing about
just
that.
mainline the
I need to do that.
like the actual quest.
Yeah.
Tell me how it ends because I just don't know. I've played that for at least 200 hours. I don't know how it ends.
What else did it? I think by the last time we pod, I had played the Alan Wake 2 DLC. The new one's out, so I need to get to that. And I sort of started the Starfield DLC, but I'm finding it. I'm sorry, Kelsey, but I'm finding it quite painfully dull. Unfortunately,
The Alan Wake DLC.
No, the Starfield DLC.
Oh yeah, well that's really badly. It's been really badly rated, hasn't it? It's just been absolutely shat on by.
It's a shame.
Is that the worst reviewed thing that Bethesda have ever made? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm just finding it honestly painfully dull. I sort of ended up loving Starfield.
Okay,
but the DLC is just not for me, I'm afraid.
What a shame.
Yeah, disappointed. But yeah, I guess I'm mindful that this may be a long-running podcast, so I suppose.
Right, let's get into it.
We should just get into this.
I'm so excited because you've described your notes as a tome earlier today.
Rather long. So I have got a lot of page breaks because I tried to keep each character to no more than a page of notes. So, but I do have 14 pages of notes. So let's
strap
just get
in,
through it.
Suckers! Happy Halloween,
strap
bitch!
yourselves in. But anyway, yes, let's dive in, Alex. So, released on the 25th of September 2001 for what for many would turn out to be an all-time classic, Silent Hill 2, released on the PS2 to a Metacritic score of 89. Now
Robbed.
Yes, I was going to say, is it just me? But I feel like for a game that people to this day stand up as like. For many, it's an all-time classic. It's certainly an all-time classic in the horror genre.
It's the greatest horror game ever made.
Feels low, right?
Yeah, way too low.
It's not just me.
No.
But so interestingly, it's one of the ones where the user critic it's about 92, I think, the user score, which I think feels better, but again, maybe a bit low. But that said, still, the game went on to sell over 1 million copies in its first month after release. And some man that I discovered when I was looking through old reviews of this named Jeff Lundegren. He seems to have I was Googling him, and he seems to have left the industry around 2007 because that's his last online mention on Games Radar when you give him a Google. So he reviewed the game saying it's not for the faint of heart, nor for anyone looking for fast action, but those who enjoy a good shiver won't be disappointed. And the reason I included it in the start of this is because just how bloody accurate it still is today. Sort of one of my biggest takeaways from the game is just how well the atmosphere has endured over the years. I don't know about you, Alex, but it's sort of, I don't know. I've written in my notes that it handles quite stiffly. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. I found it perfectly fine, to controls wise? How did you find it?
I assume if you played the PC or Xbox version, you would probably think it handles better than you would do while playing the PS2 version, which is tank control. Well, you have to press a button to run. I didn't have to do that. I had to either use the analog stick to run or the D-pad to walk. So yeah, still handled absolutely fine for me. Nice bit of auto aim.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't realize there was a quick turn that like you did. So that's the first time that's happened.
Yeah, I know.
That way around.
Absolute scenes going on at
towers. I'm in pieces. I think I sort of said it, I think, underneath what you were saying earlier, but I still think this is the best horror game ever made. Not the best survival horror game, not the scariest game, just the best sort of example of what horror is. Like dictionary definition of horror, certainly psychological horror, that is what Silent Hill is to a T, and it is so unsettling even now. I probably took some of that away from you, but while sitting on Discord chatting to you while you were playing it to ease you through it, because I played this mostly alone, completely alone in the house, in the dark, and I had to leave an hour after playing it before bed every time I did to play something nice and fun, and then watch something on YouTube before I went to sleep because I just hated some of the noises. Like the soundtrack on this game is so horribly discordant and eerie and just droning. I just hate like the room where you go where the dude's been shot himself in the head or whatever while he's watching TV. The noise it plays when you continue to go back in that room, I absolutely hated it.
For some reason, the prison put the absolute shitters up me. That whole area was I don't know, it just this sort of vibe and atmosphere. I guess actually the idea of an empty prison, because it's I suppose it's probably a bit like a hospital, a place that you would expect to be full all the time. When you go into the idea of going into empty, probably is quite unsettling. Yeah, they modelled the town apparently on for one of the headquarters for like the American branch of Konami or something.
Oh, really?
Some town in
So they actually really nailed quite a nice kind of like Maine style aesthetic for the outward facing town. But anything you go in, the apartments, the prison, the Nightmare Hotel is fucking disgusting. Like this game is just it's like seasonal affective depression or whatever they call it. But it's like interior affective depression. Like I'm so sickened by looking at these disgusting rusted grey peely horrible blood-soaked walls everywhere that it's just it's just obviously it's repeated assets and stuff to save on memory or whatnot, but incredibly effective design of the interiors of this game just to be just really downbeat and horrible. It just drags you down into its muck with it every step of the way.
It does. I don't know. I find the being inside buildings a bit more unsettling than I did when I was outside. Outside, it's quite easy to kind of avoid shit. And a lot of the time, you're just staring at what looks like television static, or at least the version I game was. But when you go inside,
I believe if you complete the game, you can actually then turn that off.
Oh, can you? I know there was a mod that floating about that you can turn it off, but I hadn't heard that. But that's
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. But it was funny because I said it to you, didn't I, when you were playing that in all the rooms that you go, and obviously the map in this game, which we may touch on again later, unbelievably good map. Mm-hmm. Got your position on the map is shown at all times. It is an arrow, so it shows which way you're facing. And not only that, but James will obviously fill out the map as he's going along.
Yeah.
As long as he can see it with his torch on.
This is probably a good chance to talk about the map, because I think, as I said to you before, a lot of this podcast is going to be taken up talking about the themes and the characters and the story. Okay. So, the opening part of this is our chance to talk about sort of the bosses, or like sort of the gameplay section of the bosses, the map, the level design, the areas, how we think it controls, even the mood, and just the general vibes of the game. But the map's very good. I actually wanted to mention the map specifically because even for its time, it's a very good map. But do you know what? I liked how was it you that told me this? So I may be stealing something from you accidentally. How like when you find a map and then you find a map of an area beside it, and he sort of pushes the maps together. You can
Yeah,
see.
it's where you climb through the window from one apartment
That's right.
into the next
Yes.
apartment. You kind of like, I just love the DIY level of like it's showing you two bits of paper pushed together.
Do you know
like
what I
you would
even
do.
loved later on in the game is when you end up sort of down in the depths of hell and there's no map and he starts drawing his own map. That
Yes.
in the labyrinth area, I just
Yeah.
thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
the
it's
way
a
he does
brilliant
that.
little
Yeah.
touch.
Yeah.
But to close the loop on why I was bringing up the
sorry.
map is that I mentioned to David while I was watching him play that when you're trying to fill in your map or at least get James to cross off the doors, because in most of the areas they're going to be like 90% of the doors are going to be having a broken lock that he can't open. And I was saying to David how most of the time I was hoping he would say that on every door that he goes to, like, please be locked, please. But I don't want any of these to be unlocked because it means I've got to go in somewhere, hear some more horrible noises, and probably see something horrible. So, I would just quite like it if every door was locked and I just have to keep walking through buildings and leaving immediately.
Yeah.
Please.
Do you have an area that sort of sticks out in your mind? Like for me, for some reason, maybe it was just sort of I was sort of in peak flow, but my favorite area is probably the apartments. I just really enjoyed that whole section of the game.
I would say that has some of the best horror parts to it.
Yeah, definitely. You also
I like the hotel.
You meet a lot of the characters as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Like the whole meeting with Angie when you go up to, or Angela, whatever, when you go into the room that she's lying in with the knife.
Yes,
that's really like, and Eddie throwing up everywhere. Yeah, that's really, it really sets the tone early in that.
Stupid,
that it's
annoying bent Laura comes and kicks your key away from you.
Stupid little fucking brat. Yeah, but I like the hotel, the normal hotel, not the nightmare hotel. That's my favorite part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also
a bit of a classier joint.
Yeah. I don't know why that area gave me Alan Wake 2 vibes, and I don't know why.
Yeah, because they reminded me of there's a hotel in that. Even, and it kind of reminded me of the is it like a cinema or a theater or something?
Yeah,
but yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
The bosses, I thought, sort of steering away from the themes that the bosses cover, because we'll come back to that. I thought the bosses were generally pretty fun as well. They were incredibly intimidating when you meet them. Good spread of being hyper aggressive and also just sort of, I don't know, like sometimes you like when you knew your boss was coming, you're like, oh no. Sort of as in the build-up cutscene when you knew you were about to fight them.
I have since just like having watched some videos and stuff today and fully acknowledged what the character design of the boss for Angela is. I fucking hate that. That is so disturbing. It
is.
The form of the boss
is
effectively a walking bed with a man forcing himself upon somebody else under the covers to symbolize Angela being raped by her dad is so fucked up.
And again, like the wall as well, it's like a fleshy.
Oh, and there's pistons going into it. It's so horrible.
Horrid, man. It is absolutely disgusting.
Cassie walked in while I was playing this and I had it pause at one point, but it had some horrible music going on and I was like freaking out, like saying to my wife, just get Cassie out of here, even though there wasn't anything happening. She couldn't see anything other than a pause screen and hear some noise. But I was like, I really don't want her, because I was so disturbed. Like she wouldn't even know what it is, but I just wanted her out, just like get her away. It's too horrible. Hide the children.
I think it's a word I like to use, so maybe I use it too much, but I genuinely think like there's no more apt word than like there's some of this game is genuinely harrowing. Like when you actually realize
it's so bleak
what it's doing and what it's what it's describing, and it's just.
And these are young men as well that were writing this. You know, the guy who's come out the most to talk about this. I think his surname is Ito. I can't remember his first name now. He's like the character designer. Like, you see videos of him talking about. Is it Masahiro Ito? I think. You see videos of him from like the actual development diaries or whatever, and he was like early 20s, and for them to design so much horrible shit at such a young age, like what's happened to you, man?
I tell you
Are
what,
you okay?
Also, I mean, like I get it, like obviously different themes and topics, and I get it that like games like Metal Gear Solid existed, so they had sort of pushed the genres on, and the ability to sort of cover more interesting, subtle. Not that this game's it is in ways and isn't in ways, but anyway, just being. It feels like quite a brave move. Like, obviously, like, I think for maybe if we've got some younger listeners, it's one of these things that seems fine these days in terms of like being able to cover different topics and things like that. But the games industry hasn't always been like that. And I think that actually, in a way, it was quite a pioneering game and brave. Like, the one that always, again, different topics, but the thing that always jumps out to me is someone, I was listening to a podcast, it was just after Up came out, and they were talking about how, like, interesting and, again, brave, like, Up was, because they made, like, can you think of another, like, children's animation where the main character is an old man? And, like, it's just doing things that the sort of the norm of the industry just would never cover. And to cover themes like this in what was essentially a pretty big budget game from a big budget developer. Amazing.
It's just so unapologetic about what it is.
Yes.
Like, it holds nothing back. And when you can go back and look at the old Resident Evil games, which I guess would be most people's main comparison as a series to Silent Hill. And to be honest, there barely is any comparison other than the era they came out in and the way the way they handle.
Yeah, the handle. It's like I don't know. It's a horror game with puzzles.
Yeah, but just like, we love Resident Evil. You've grown to love it more now on this podcast. I will play the original games endlessly, and they were terrifying in certain ways at the time, but they were never anything. They were unapologetically B-movie horror, to be fair. They were quite schlocky and they knew it. Yep. Whereas this holds up in a completely different way to that. Like, Resident Evil 2 holds up to me because I just love it. And it's almost comfort food for me. Whereas this is just like gone off milk. It makes me retch. Yeah. It's so effective. And so, like we said, the tone and the idea and the design of certain parts of this game and the messages behind how it's designed and the overall story it's trying to tell of effectively a suicidal man who's euthanized his dying diseased wife and has gone insane in a town full of horrible, rapey, flesh-eat monsters. It will always hold up because of that. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like, because that character design and what the meaning of it is when you look into it is so striking that it will never age in that sense. It'll always be horrible and scary in that way.
Had you played this before?
Yeah.
So you knew what you were getting into.
Unfortunately, I'd only ever played the HD remaster, which is dog shit.
So I guess from my perspective, I have played it a lot, and like, it's one of these games that on the A Winner Is You podcast, I've been waxing lyrical for years about it being my favorite horror game, but it's been so long since I played it that I couldn't remember really very much anything about it. And I think for me, what was interesting is, I think when I was younger and I played it, I sort of enjoyed it as just a face value horror game. It is scary to walk around these streets, don't quite know what's going on, but it's terrifying. Whereas now, like, I found it terrifying, but also could sort of appreciate a lot of the layers it had on top of it, which just gave me a whole new appreciation for this game and just how, I don't know, effective and well designed it is even today. Because again, like 2002, it's a long time ago now, and it still holds up so well in an industry that is constantly moving forward. I just think it is so impressive how good a game this is, and even like, obviously the graphics aren't as good as modern day graphics, but I genuinely don't think that holds the game back. I think it's as scary as it needs to be.
You can't see any of the graphics.
No. That's another thing that's interesting as well. Is like, I remember when I turned this game on, did you get this as well? And I suppose it's deliberate, but I guess what I'm getting at is it's a sort of an allusion to like such good level design, in that, like, I felt like I had no idea where I was going at the beginning of the game. You know, when you go down the hill and you're surrounded by fog and you're making your way towards Silent Hill Town, I was like, am I going the right way? I have no idea. I'm lost. This is so disorientating. But somehow the game funnels you the right way. And I just find
it always seems to be
fascinating.
Yeah. Like, the way that it locks off certain areas and sort of funnels you into other ones, and you then come back to inaccessible areas later on, either through Metroidvania means or through I don't know, Pyramid Head twatting you off the side of a building to get into an area you couldn't before, or you're now in a nightmare version of it and it's flipped or whatever. It's it's so well done.
Do you want to dive into some of these themes?
Yeah, go on then.
Are we ready for this? Let me have a drink of whiskey.
I've got a little side note that you may bring up later on, but one thing that I thought pertinent to bring up to you is the thing where it does the quiz when you're in the lift. It asks you about the guy who's done the murder. And I'd said to you at some point, make sure you remember the old name of Walter Sullivan.
Yes.
Didn't realise until today that, because I've never played it before, he's the main antagonist in Silent Hill 4: The Room.
Is he?
Walter Sullivan, yeah.
Interesting.
We will probably get to that at some point, ladies and gents, because I think we're probably going to do 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think, I'm
before this
interested
podcast bites the dust.
Exactly.
Okay, when we die.
Yeah. But yeah, talking of dying, the first sort of theme is we're going to talk about Silent Hill itself. So I'll give you a quick rundown, Alex, and then we'll have a chat about what we think of that. So, as we know, Silent Hill 2 isn't a direct sequel to Silent Hill. It's simply another story that takes place in the same town.
Unless I guess you get the UFO endings.
Yeah, that's true. Interestingly, they were not in the PS2 version, those endings. So you had.
Oh, weren't they?
No, it's an Xbox sort of exclusive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're basically the only bits that tie the first 2 games together. Is that you can get a UFO ending in the first game where Harry gets abducted by aliens, and you can get a UFO ending in Silent Hill 2 where Harry, shown in his polygonal form as well, next to James's PS2 model.
Face, yeah,
is shown helping out the aliens to abduct James. That's the only connection between the 2 games, and it's a joke ending.
Yeah. The TLDR of the story here is that when we meet James at the beginning of the game, we discover that his wife has died, seemingly about 3 years ago, and that he has received a letter from said dead wife saying that she is waiting for him in Silent Hill. What we eventually find out, however, is that James' wife is indeed dead, but that he killed her. It turns out that Silent Hill, as a place, was first settled on hundreds of years ago by native Indians who were drawn there because of the area's supernatural energies, leading to them to treat it like a holy place. At some point after that, colonists turned up, as they do, and murdered all the Indians, turning it into an Indian burial ground. After that,
God damn them.
After that, a plague took hold and ended up killing all the colonists in the same place, because they didn't move on after they killed them all. They just stayed in the same site.
Oh, it's theirs now.
Yeah, it's true. Adding to the power of Silent Hill and seemingly distorting it somehow, which was then followed by a steady centuries-long trail of death and cults that would become interested in the area.
The
sort of final,
and also a married couple who like the hotel on the lake.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. The sort of final trigger point that led Silent Hill to becoming what it is when we meet James is that a cult member believes that if she burned her own child on the site, it would allow her god to be summoned into our world.
Oh, that's the rebirth ending, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that right? Because that's the rebirth ending, is where he tries to do some ritual that's been performed by someone to bring Mary back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he takes her off to a church. Maybe is a link to that. I never made that connection. Good work. But yeah, it's after that Silent Hill began calling people with darkness in their hearts. Cough. Letter from dead wife. Cough.
I was watching a video about that today, and there seems to be some potential pushback against the fact that Silent Hill called James there or can even do that.
Right.
Because if you get the in water ending, which is what Masahiro Ito believes to be for him
makes most
the
sense
canonical ending. Yeah. Is that James just went there because Mary and he had those memories of being in the hotel together, and she wanted him to take the letter that she writes to him says, "I always, in my dreams, I saw that lake." That thought process there is that he was just driving straight there with Mary in the back seat. Apparently, it's not rendered into the game, but that's what he believes. That character designer,
I guess that explains that James. There. That doesn't explain Abigail No, Angela. Doesn't explain Angela
Angela.
or Eddie necessarily.
Yeah, so basically, I think he says in that ending, like, now I know why I came here. Why was I so afraid? I always knew, or something like that. And so the indication there is that James had come there off his own accord to drive his car into the lake with Mary in the back. He stops because he's kind of losing his nerve about doing it. He goes into the restroom, and that's when he suffers this Silent Hill induced delusion, which then manifests all of his inner fears and sins into reality. And then he kind of forgets that that's why he was there in the first place. Walks away from Mary in the car, and then fucks off into the town and sees all this horrible shit. Eddie apparently has never killed anybody.
Apparently,
so he does say to James in the boss fight, "Come on, James, this town called you too," or something. So it is kind of like a mixed set of messaging there of whether the really town is indeed sentient enough to call people to it or not. Whether people come there and then lose their thoughts when they arrive and feel that maybe they were called there because their purpose was just happened to manifest within that area. I don't know.
We will get to Eddie, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But I am interested in the Eddie discussion because obviously, like you're talking about, the people that actually made the game said that Eddie never killed anyone. But I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, I don't know, I think you can make quite a coherent argument that he maybe did. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, so as the story continues, it turns out that James's wife James killed his wife and has or hasn't been summoned to the town to atone for his sins for whatever reason he is at the town. During our time of the game, the town itself seems to take three distinct forms. We've got the real world, we've got the fog world, which is almost like a dreamlike state. In James's case, this takes the shape of a fog-like mind, and when the fog clears, things get scary as he faces up to the truth, so to speak. And then thirdly, we've got the other world, which is like it's terrible, dangerous. You're left in a living hell created by your own psyche. It's worth noting that everyone's experience of this world is different, as it's made up of their own minds, as we'll get to when we speak about Angela.
But they can overlap.
But they can overlap somehow, yes. Alex, we've kind of covered this, but what's your thoughts and feelings about Silent Hill as a setting for the game? Have you seen any movies or read any books that have sort of like relate to this general setting or fiction?
Well, again, it has Twin Peaks vibes about it, doesn't it? In terms of the way that it looks,
yes.
It's not an overt, as overt an homage to it as Alan Wake is, which is effectively just here's Twin Peaks the game with a bloke in it.
Yeah.
But I just think it's it's fantastic. The idea of the town being covered in the fog and how it manifests things from James's psyche into reality. Brilliant.
It just blows my mind.
One of those greatest of all time settings, sort of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. It kind of blows my mind that when you actually start sort of reading into the imagery and stuff that this game is trying to present, like literally everything it does, it means something. There's nothing that's just there. Like people say that the fog's there to sort of help with the lack of processing power of the PS2 at the time, but I mean, I don't know, the explanation of how it's there, I don't know, is very, very compelling to me.
That works in the same way for me as the Resident Evil fixed cameras of you can't see where the zombies are, but you can hear them, so that it makes it scary because of a limitation.
Yes.
Well, this one you can see absolutely fuck all. Man's greatest fear is that of the unknown, and in this case, it's the unknown and unseen. So
and what
it works.
That up to me as well is when you've got your radio on, you walk into a room, you can see fuck all, but you can hear the static going off in your radio, and you're like, oh fuck, there's someone here.
Yeah. And especially later on when you get like the bubble nurses and whatever, and the clanging and banging that follows those fuckers around.
Oh my God.
Yeah, awful.
Right. Angela Roscoe. It's time to dive into this one, which is probably the worst one of the lot, to be honest. So let's just get through this, Alex. So when we meet Angela for the first time, she seems to be looking for her mum. And as we learn, she has been summoned or not to Silent Hill to deal with her inner darkness. Unfortunately, and perhaps harrowingly, this is a very heavy one. Angela's story is one of sexual abuse and mental health issues. The first clue we are given of this is her distrust of James at the very beginning, something that persists throughout the game, showing itself in various ways. Interestingly, if we interact with the notes and clippings strewn around Silent Hill, we learn that it's likely that Angela killed both her dad and her brother, who appear to have. Carry on.
Yeah, she definitely killed her dad because her dad's Thomas Orozco, and there's a story about him being stabbed, isn't it?
Yes,
and she's holding a knife.
And she's holding a bloody knife. Yeah, who had apparently both subjected her to years of sexual and physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that she again stabbed them both multiple times, and we can find descriptions of that throughout the game. The knife she carries throughout is also a direct nod to this.
There's a story somewhere. I think it's in like an instruction book or something. Some kind of written explanation where it says something about Angela ran away from home at one point when she graduated high school, and her dad found her and dragged her back home again.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
I guess at this point,
from a young age,
it's probably worth discussing the boss fight that centers around Angela's character, which we've already touched on. It's probably worth going into again. When you look at the character, it appears to be this is the boss fight that you end up fighting later in the game when you slip into Angela's world. When you look at the character, it appears to be two bodies fused to a bed frame, mimicking sex, which is an extremely vivid manifestation of the abuse Angela has been subjected to. The boss room itself, again, as we've already said, which you encounter through somehow slipping into her version of Silent Hill, is a flesh-coloured room filled with holes and pistons thrusting in and out of them. Again, seemingly simulation of sex, but in a dirty, repulsive way. It's actually quite horrid to look at.
Very it reminded me of this movie called Tetsuo, which I briefly watched, which is a horrible Japanese, like old black and white film that I could not finish because it's just so surrealist, and it's all about that whole mechanical sexual fusion shit. Yeah. I just couldn't handle it. It was like I had to turn that off. It was horrible. But I had visions of that when I saw those fucking pistons.
It's probably the most disgusting.
Literally fucking pistons.
I genuinely think that might be the most sort of harrowing, disgusting, horrible boss fight in any video game ever made.
I can't think of any worse.
I can't think of anything worse.
Because the underlying symbolism is so real.
Yeah.
Or the underlying reasoning for the symbolism is so real and not relatable, but that happens a lot in real life. It's not like it's Dante's Inferno. Look, a giant demon woman with massive tits and her nipples trying to eat you. It's not like that's disgusting, but this is disgusting on a deeply human level.
I just find the sort of like mechanical force of the pistons as well. Just I hate it.
Yeah, just the way she just kicks the shit out of it when it's done. And then she asks, is that when she doesn't ask for the knife back then, is it? She asks for the knife back later on when she's
in the next bit. So again, near sort of the end of the game, we find ourselves in Angela's world again, with her standing on a burning staircase, staring at a picture of two bloody figures, which apparently represent her father and brother. The burning staircase seems to both confirm the guilt that she feels and visually represent the living hell that Angela has been living in, which is, again, just really makes you, I don't know. I just felt so sorry for Angela the whole time. And she has these really odd, and before you sort of realize what's happened to her, you have these really odd interactions with
she's just miles away.
Yeah, and it just sort of makes that all click into place and make sense.
I said to you about how I really like the way that it did those sort of like FMV cutscenes and then back into the gameplay. But it was we sort of touched on it, when you walk into that room and she's just kind of lying on the ground with the knife just resting next to her in her hand, and she's just so what's the thing that happens when you're just you're not within yourself anymore? What is it called? Disassociation, is it?
Okay.
She's just she's so out of it, effectively. She's just kind of lying there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care how old the game is and how old that looks. That still really kind of hits that she's just fucking done. There's nothing going on that in any way positive in her. That so much she's just completely shut down. It's horrible.
I think it's interesting as well because as you sort of get to the end of the game, and then when you sort of look back and you realize that there's multiple endings and different ways that it can play out, you can sort of save James or not save James or somewhere in the middle. Again, to me, when she turns around and walks up the stairs through the fire, I think that's quite a powerful moment because she's just lost. She just doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
She's just had enough.
Her mum's obviously dead too. I heard somewhere that her mum was apparently quite abusive to her as well, maybe in an emotional way.
Yeah, it seems emotionally.
But she's there to look for. Well, she's looking at a grave for her mum right at the beginning, so I guess she's got no one left family wise. So yeah, she really does have nothing else to carry her on.
Nothing else
life.
to carry on. Yeah, it's one of those. It's sort of similar to an extent of James when he's talking about how Silent Hill's talking to Angelus about Silent Hill's dangerous. He's like, I don't care. Like, I think
I guess I don't care if it's dangerous or not. Yeah,
I think James. I don't know. My feeling about James is that he probably, well, maybe depending on what ending you get, but how my game played out, I think he probably did care. Whereas Angela is an example of someone who genuinely doesn't. Which again is
she's apparently walking through flames for everywhere she goes.
Exactly.
So I
tried to walk through the flames up the stairs at that moment, and it just burns you. So you have to go back out. And I assume I didn't pick up on it, and maybe there's not been able to put the clues together. But when you leave the room, you go back into water. It's like the opposite of fire, which I just thought was an interesting contrast. But I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, there's a contrast as well when she asks for the knife back, and he's like, "I'm not going to give that to you." And she says, "Oh, are you afraid you're going to use it or something, or you're going to use it on yourself?" And he says, "No, I'd never kill myself." When again, the canonical, quote unquote, canonical ending is that he is there to kill himself, for his own guilt.
Yeah,
and of course, if you keep looking at that knife, you will get that ending where he does kill himself.
Yeah. We'll come back again. We'll come back to that one later because I think there's an interesting thing that was cut from the game that I wonder if that alludes to that. So yeah, next up we've got Eddie Dombrowski.
Fucking douchebag.
He's much again. Like I'm going to sound so harsh. I feel sorry for Eddie.
No, I do feel sorry for him,
but
really.
I've got much less sympathy for him than I do for Angela.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's obviously been subjected to a lifetime of ridicule and bullying,
like sort of mental abuse. So like where Angela's received, I suppose Angela's received both, but if we say like on a base term, Angela's received the physical abuse, Eddie seems to have been on the end of the verbal abuse. But yeah, much like Angela, we meet Eddie. When we meet Eddie, he seems to have been again summoned or not to Silent Hill for reasons unknown. In the same area that we meet Eddie, we can see a corpse stuffed inside a fridge, something that Eddie appears as soon as you meet him, just starts claiming without prodding at all that he didn't do it. That's kind of what I was getting at earlier. It's like there's a lot of this around that, like, for someone that didn't kill someone, he seems to find himself in a lot of situations where there's a lot of dead bodies around, seemingly
because
that could point towards him.
Yeah, the one where before the boss fight, there's like a corpse in there, isn't it? It's kind of riddled with bullet holes.
First time you see him with a gun, they find a corpse riddled with bullet holes. Yeah,
and apparently, in that room, I think if you were to go and look at on the wall, there's like a picture on the wall of that room that you're stood in, and in the corner of the picture, there's a corpse that's in the same position as the one in the real room, but it's actually dressed and looks like James.
Oh, really?
Instead of, to sort of foreshadow that he's going to try and kill you or whatever. He's wearing his little jacket.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, actually, you asked me earlier on about watching movies and stuff. I did watch Jacob's Ladder in the lead up to this, which was the strong influence.
How
for
was
this,
that? Is that good?
film.
Is it worth watching?
It's effective. It's not an enjoyable film. Very much like Silent Hill is not often a very enjoyable video game.
Yeah, true.
It has it itself has some very dark themes to deal with and some imagery that is quite horrible to look at. There's a lot of this sort of effect where they shot somebody shaking their head at like 4 frames a second and then sped it right the way up to normal to get this really fast head shaking movement that you see a lot of the characters or the enemies on the floor when you've taken them out. They all shake really quickly. Yeah, they took that from it. The way he dresses, though, is what made me think about that again. Is the main character in Jacob from Jacob's Ladder, at points in the film, he's wearing very similar clothes to James, which is apparently what they
modeled my wife uniform kit.
Get up, the Vietnam Army jacket with jeans look. And there's a key that you have to get, I think, in the apartment. It's called the Linehouse key. The director of Jacob's Ladder is Adrian Lyne. So that was a
nice.
very, very specific homage to him. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Later.
I recommend it though.
Yeah, I'll need to watch that. I've not actually watched any horror movies throughout October, so I need to get my finger out. Actually, no, that's a lie. I watched Alien earlier this month again.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah. Later, when we meet Eddie for a second time, he's sitting eating pizza in the bowling alley.
I mean, that bit is funny.
Yeah.
That's the one funny bit. How can you sit here and eat pizza?
Yeah.
Such a bad line delivery from what I've learned is quite a dickhead of a man.
Oh,
The original voice actor for James. Yes, apparently during COVID, he became one of those people who was a proper 5G conspiracy theorist.
Oh, dear.
Actually posted stuff about 5G, giving it to people and all that kind of nonsense. So unfortunately, he's gone insane.
One of Annie, my girlfriend's best friends, I think it's her husband, is a BT engineer. And so during COVID, he used to get like psychos from the slums coming up to him and saying, "How can you live with yourself? You're killing babies." And he's like, "What the fuck? I'm just fixing the fucking phone line." So yeah, because of that, BT engineer, I don't think he works for BT anymore, but BT engineers can't go out on their own to fix phone lines because they have received so much abuse following COVID. Yeah.
Well.
But yeah, later when we meet Eddie for the second time, like I said, he's sitting eating pizza, perhaps comfort eating, probably, and is taking some.
Well, he's got a lot of room in his guts.
He does, yeah. He's taking some harsh abuse from the wee kid Laura.
You're just a gutless pedo.
He never really tries to defend himself, and he just sort of just, "Why would you say that?"
Yeah.
We're just sort of given the impression that he sort of just absorbs verbal abuse in a way that he's taken it and lived with it for a long time, and it's just part of his life. It would seem that the longer Eddie is in Silent Hill, the more his outer shell sort of gets peeled back, and we begin to see the reason as to why he's there. At one point, we see Eddie having slipped yet more into madness, seemingly leaving a scene after he had allegedly killed someone. Again, this is the thing. Like the designer says, he didn't. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff to me that seems like he has. The final and complete detachment from reality takes place when, unlike Angela, Eddie himself becomes one of the game's boss battles. Did you enjoy that boss battle?
I didn't dislike any of the boss fights, but I think part of that reason is because none of them were really that difficult.
Oh, no. I just sort of run away and just unload your shotgun into Eddie's stomach.
Yeah, basically hide behind some ham and then give him a taste of some gunishment.
Yeah, so I've got a description here. The final slip into madness manifests itself I've got a freezer. There we go. With dead carcasses hanging around, much like Angela. It seems that Eddie has lost to Silent Hill and can't save himself. He speaks about how he killed the dog and the dog's owner, who seemingly bullied Eddie, and says that he enjoyed it. But again, this seems like he's lying, which I don't understand why he's lying. Because he did kill the dog, but not the bully.
Yeah, he shot the bully in the foot or something, didn't he?
Right, yeah, okay.
Just like shot him in the leg or something like that.
But yeah, at that point he turns on James, and you're forced to kill him. Interesting, in the lead up to meeting Eddie, there's a room filled with posters of football players. So it's just before you meet him in the toilet, there's a room next door it's full of football players with like lines about physical feats and physical beauty written all over them, which is
I never noticed that.
The exact opposite from what Eddie clearly feels that he has none of, which sort of, I guess, is like an early clue into why he's there. Whether Eddie killed anyone is left up to the player. However, I think I've got series director Masahashi Sobuyama, or is that the? Okay. Yeah,
that's different to the other guy.
Yeah. He said that in his mind, Eddie never killed anyone. Only the dog owned by the bully. My next question is, Alex, what did you think of Eddie and the themes cover? We've kind of covered that. Is there anything you've sort of missed off?
Yeah, it's the arc of Eddie is very interesting, isn't it? It's he's almost the light relief at points, just being this sorry sack of shit.
He's quite a hard dude to like, but
Yeah.
Again, that
You just pity him, as
you
you say.
sort of pity him. Yeah, he just seems.
And
I don't want to seem harsh, but he just seems a bit pathetic.
yeah, he is. And I think there is more than a subtle nod to commentary on America's gun ownership and things like that. I think he is probably portrayed as one of those sort of outcast guys who has just taken all he can and then inevitably winds up with
Snapping
weapons in his hand and taking it out on people in that way.
Spot on, mate. Spot on.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we've got, well, I was going to say the chief antagonist. She's not an antagonist, but she's certainly the most annoying character in the game. Laura.
Oh, right, yes. I thought you were going to say Maria, but yes, no. Laura sucks.
Yeah, like I say, perhaps the most annoying character in the game. She's a complete dick, but perhaps through design, as we're about to find out. So we first meet her. She kicks away the key from James's grasp and running away, taunting him, a theme that we'll see happen throughout the game. She actually does say when she's speaking to Eddie at some point, "Oh yeah, I run away a lot." But
did she say that?
Yeah,
okay.
which she does.
Oh, she does say that. Yeah.
She spends a lot of time running away from people,
including in our favourite point where she runs where you're chasing her with Maria, and they both go, "Oh, she went that way," and then it's like 2 yards round the corner.
Yeah,
at a door you can already see because you're right outside it.
Actually, the interesting thing about the runaway is going to be a theme throughout Laura that we're going to get to, because I'll just carry on and we'll get there. Again, like when I've sort of said during the Eddie section, when we meet her again, she's speaking to Eddie, who she makes fun of, then again runs away after you find out she seemingly has a letter from James's wife, Mary. The other point of note that I want to mention is that she locks James in a room full of monsters that we're going to come back later, because I think that's quite a poignant part of the story, actually, recently when we come back to it. But yeah, I just want you to remember that she did that. And then we'll speak about the monsters that were locked in the room with James. We do find out that Laura seemingly did actually know James and Mary, as she tells James that she's 8 years old, which leads to, and she tells James that she's 8 years old, which leads to one of the first major shifts in James's attitude, as he realizes that if she is 8, Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago, and in fact probably only died quite recently.
Yeah, because she wrote a letter to Laura saying happy 8th birthday, and Laura says, I turned 8 last week.
Yes.
In
most of the endings, the last you see of Laura is right after you've watched the videotape that depicts James murdering Mary. She lambasts James for killing her and then ... runs away again. She is, however, in one ending that, again, we'll come back to later. Otherwise, it's assumed that Laura then leaves the town unharmed. Apparently, it's thought that Laura isn't there for any particular reason, and she's maybe just run away again. Something that she says she does a lot. The idea being that Silent Hill is just a quiet town to her the whole time while everybody's seeing this madness. She was just there looking for her friend. Alex,
I wonder how does she know him though? Did she say she knows her from the hospital or something?
Yeah, so it turns out, I think we do come to this later, but it turns out that perhaps Laura was another patient at the hospital at the same time that Mary was there getting treated. And there's something about, in the letter that you read that she has from Mary, the letter reads that she's like, I know you like James, you don't like James, but he's actually a nice guy. The thought there is that, again, we'll come back to this and I'll repeat myself, but sort of a brief overview. The thought there is that as James became less able to cope with the situation he was in, he began drinking, and he'd maybe say to Mary that I'm going to visit you, and because he was drunk or just not able to cope, he wouldn't turn up. And then on top of that, he was the only other person that was spending significant time with Mary. So she didn't like him because he wasn't reliable and turning up when he said he would, and she also didn't like him because she was jealous of the relationship that he had with Mary as well.
Okay.
Which
sounds like the sort of thing an 8-year-old kid would feel.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? She's annoying, but she's quite a useful character throughout the game, right?
Certainly not for James's progression, but she's almost like the sort of straight man character that comes along and kind of calls James out on his bullshit.
I found it interesting, the idea that she's just seeing Silent Hill like a normal town.
She kind of has to be.
Yeah.
Because, well, I guess nobody's effectively seeing those monsters. Does anybody else
you never fight a monster other than when you're in someone else's world. So you fight a monster in front of Angela. You never fight anything else when anyone's there.
I mean, Maria you do fight some things with, but she's a manifestation created by James's psyche anyway.
Seems like, yeah, again, we've got Maria coming up, but it seems that she's probably a creature of Silent Hill anyway.
Yeah. Isn't that's brought more to life in the DLC, you know what I mean?
Yeah, which I think I do have notes for later.
What's that called? Born from a
wish, maybe?
That's basically, that explains it, right? Yeah. That just tells you what she is anyway.
Yeah, it turns out that she's essentially the sort of the perfect memory / what James wished Maria was.
Yes. So, or at least, because she can't be that anymore because she's obviously stricken with disease and is not putting out, for want of a better phrase. And
exactly.
Clearly, Maria is all up for it from the beginning. But there was an interesting thing that I saw where, there's an occasional motif in the game of butterflies, and there's obviously an ending that's called Rebirth. But butterflies obviously are something of a symbol of because they're a symbol of like being born from a cocoon again. And Maria's got a butterfly tattoo to kind of give a little subtle hint that she's like Mary reborn, as how James wishes that Mary could still be, but obviously won't be anymore.
Yeah. I'm aware that this pod might run out of control. The next section I've got is the general enemies, so I will just try and fly through them quickly. We've got the lying, something called the lying figure. This is the first creature that you discover in the game, and this is one that seems to be encased in a straitjacket made of flesh in some kind of state of decomposition. This is apparently a physical manifestation of James's suffering and feeling of confinement. This enemy is also meant to be reminiscent of Mary and her terminal illness, feeling trapped in her own body, rotting away. The attack of spitting acid, also that not meant. Sorry, tripping over my words. But basically, the attack of this enemy is to spit acid, which is a sort of play on
annoying.
Yes, they play on the verbal abuse that Mary started to give James as she became more ill and more trapped in her body as she approached death, almost like she's literally spewing venom at him. I thought that was really quite a good visual representation of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of enemies that have got lips on them as well, like really big lips, and apparently that Masahiro Ito, the character and enemy designer, studied this. I can't remember the name of the artist that he studied, but there's an artist anyway who did loads of like horrible fucking mouth shit, and he wanted to put mouths, like giant horrible mouths, on a lot of the enemies to again represent Mary's sort of vitriol being spewed at James when she was just losing ability to cope with her inevitable demise. Especially like the not mannequins, the ones that are like the ones that swing underneath him. They've got like giant mouths on their hands. Donkey Kong.
They're called mandarins. So
mandarins.
These again, as exactly what you've said, but they also represent the shame that James feels throughout, highlighted in the fact that they're never ever seen above ground. They're always sort of below the surface. Apparently, the book written about Silent Hill also mentions their desire to escape. Again, nods to James's situation. Yes, that's a good point, Alex. Next up,
book.
So there's a book that written. It basically follows the story of the game, but elaborates on different key points throughout the story. Gives you more information about Mary or Maria.
Okay,
one of the two. Next up, I've got Bubblehead Nurse. After that, we've got Bubblehead Nurse, which seems to be a combination of two things. Firstly, the medical environment in which Mary was in, and also the sexual frustration that James was feeling throughout. They even die with their legs splayed apart, apparently, but I didn't notice that.
No, I didn't either.
No, the Bubblehead also seems to signify the moment James suffocates Mary with a pillow, and many feel that the jerky head movements look like someone struggling to breathe.
Yeah, because it's like, the face it's smothered,
So I say maybe other than Pyramid Head, probably the standout most iconic figure from the Silent Hill series, right?
Yeah, I remember a lot of the imagery from the Silent Hill film that came out, if I remember rightly, had those nurses prominently in it.
Yeah.
I know that the guy who, again, that Ito guy, because he's tweeted a lot about this. So I keep bringing him up, dear listener, I do apologize, but he's actually been quite annoyed that they've reused Pyramid Head as a sort of a series antagonist because he's specifically a manifestation for James.
Yeah, that's true. I've got this
as
later in my notes.
He doesn't like that that's been reused elsewhere because that's not the point of the enemy.
Yeah, spot on. Next up, I've got the mannequin. These are the double-legged things that appear to also signify sexual frustrating. Highlighted by the time you meet them, they seem to be being abused by Pyramid Head. Again, that apparently that's been cut from the remake, which is a shame.
So I hear. It doesn't run well enough for me to have seen it with my own eyes.
The flesh lips are the enemy that I was saying that we're going to come back to later that Laura locks James in the room with. So the flesh lips, they're in only one part of the game, and they try to strangle James from the ceiling, which is the bit where he's locked in with Laura. The frame is that they're in. Apparently, this is the frame the monster's in.
Like the bed frame.
Is the bed frame, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's also the lips, which seem to represent Mary's lips, which are the actual mouth. She's verbally abusing James in their final days together. Like I said, this is the bit I previously mentioned where Laura locks you in with him, almost like he's being locked inside the room with Mary abusing him.
Okay.
There's also the idea that Laura resents James as he's the only other person spending time with Mary. Again, this highlights an immature, vindictive streak in Laura and makes being locked in the room seem quite terrifying for James.
Yeah.
At that stage of grief, anyway. I thought that was it's interesting that they sort of only pop up at one part of the game, and just sort of how that follows itself is quite interesting.
Definitely.
Next up, we've got the big boy. We've got Pyramid Head. And before we start, if you don't mind, I'm going to have a pee break. Ready to go again?
Yeah, Pyramid Head, baby.
Pyramid Head, right. I got a big sword, but I never used it. Did you get that, and did you use it?
No, but I loved how the guide that I looked at on GameFAQs, and I don't know who wrote it, so apologies to the writer who will not be listening to this. He said that in his opinion, that's how you should deliver the final blow to Mary/Maria at the end of the game, is to just swat her with the big executioner's sword. But no, I didn't use it. I took it out at one point and realized how slow it makes James walk, and gave up. But there was apparently a fan theory as well at one point where if you turned your torch off and dragged the sword around, because the enemies couldn't see you but could hear the sword and they're all scared of Pyramid Head, they would run away from you. But that's apparently not true.
Until I was fucking researching this game, never realized that if you turned your torch off, the enemies find it harder to see you. But
it does.
Not realizing that.
Maybe it was the guide that told me about that said it's going to make the enemies see you a bit easier, but what's the point of turning it off? And I can't, because I need to look at the map so often because my sense of direction is dog shit. But I had to have that light on all the time.
Apparently, Pyramid Head is dressed as an executioner from the town.
Yeah, because they see a picture of him in the Silent Hill Historical Society. There's a picture of Pyramid Head there.
Oh, so that is,
the executioner, like a misty day or something it's called. And that apparently is something that they would have seen when they were visiting previously, and that's why it looks like that when James is manifesting himself, or Silent Hill is manifesting for James, the depiction of an executioner, because that's one he has recently seen in the town.
If Angela is the most upsetting character in the game, and Eddie's the most, well, David's words, pathetic character in the game, Pyramid Head is interesting because I think you could make the argument that he's actually the good guy in this game. In that he's actually trying to help James come to terms with what he's done. So this culminates in the fact that they kill themselves at the end of the game. James seems to be actively fighting back against the town at that point, which suggests that they've fulfilled their purpose and done their job. So they kill themselves and allow James to continue.
there's a theory that there's two of them at that point, because obviously the initial Pyramid Head is manifested because of James's guilt and desire to be punished for killing Mary, and the second one is then manifested because of his guilt for having to kill Eddie. And when you kill them, you get an egg from each of them to put into two doors, and one of them is like a rusty egg, which obviously symbolizes Mary. Both, I guess, the rust. It's like rotting, a horrible metaphor for like rotting, and also because she died apparently so long ago. And then the other one is a scarlet egg, which would then talk about, symbolize the fact that you've only just killed Eddie hours earlier and it's still covered in his blood, sort of thing. So the theory there is that yes, the second one is around because James even says, "I needed you because I was weak. I needed you to punish me." So, and he does break down after he kills Eddie and saying, "I killed a human" and whatnot. So that's the theory behind that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A fitting way to describe the Pyramid Heads would be that they're the truth and Mary is the deception. Is it Mary? Mary is Maria, sorry, is the deception. They're two parts of James's psyche fighting against each other. In short, Pyramid Head is there to push James forward and face up to what he's done.
Literally at one point.
Yeah. Mary is there to stop him from moving on. So like Alex just said, this is highlighted when you realize that Pyramid Head gives James access to areas at key points of the game. So after the first fight, he drains the water to let you progress through the level. Later, he then literally pushes James into the special treatment area, which lets you continue his journey. He also appears in places like the labyrinth to keep you moving and push you forward. Then, of course, when you kill him at the end, he gives you those eggs that let you progress. It's like the ultimate key to continuing.
Yeah, and
putting your hand up to speak.
Oh, sorry, I was, but I wanted to wait for you to finish your point. And he kills Maria, which is a deception, right? So
3 times.
Does he?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, go on then. Yeah, sorry.
He also has the themes of sexuality, which we've discussed, but pretty much everything has a sexual theme at this point.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, Pyramid Head was, again, Alex said this earlier, so well done, Alex, was only ever meant to be for James. The fact that he appears in movies and other games is probably purely for financial benefit because he's become so iconic.
Yes.
Alex, Pyramid Head is maybe one of the most iconic, villains / video game characters of all time, right?
Yeah. It's just so funny to see him in stuff like Astrobot and dude.
That's true. We've just played Astrobot, and you've seen him like clowning around with this little whimsy. After we've just seen him absolutely pummel the life out of someone on a kitchen table.
Oh, mate. Oh, apparently that scene actually was heavily influenced by Blue Velvet, which is a David Lynch movie where, which is a
rape scene on a ping pong on a one of those. What do you call those fucking things? Where you get like a metal ball and you bing, bing, bing. It's not ping pong. Ping pong is the fucking paddles, like fucking tennis.
The
table. Yeah, paddle things. What is that fucking called?
Save me. I don't know.
When you pull the rod back, ping the metal ball, and it ping, 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 ping down. You've got to bounce it back.
Pinball.
Pinball. Fuck me, Jesus Christ! What was wrong with me there?
Paddles. Yeah, I understand what you're saying now.
There's a famous rape scene in a movie that I can't remember the name.
It might be that
someone gets raped on a pinball table in a bar in front of a
lot
lot
of
of guys,
that.
And then she runs out.
That might be something else. That might be Irreversible, something horrible.
Kelsey,
but
if he's made it this far through the pod, he's shouting it. He'll know.
Okay. No, like in that film, apparently
some sort of rape connoisseur. That's not what I mean. Just like
he knows all movie rape scenes minute by minute. I think you'll find that 47 minutes into I Spit on Your Grave.
Like that website, Does the Dog Die?
Oh, yeah.
Kelsey's got...
Does the rape happen?
When does the rape happen?
You know this is not going to work on YouTube. You're not apparently allowed to say that word on YouTube. So
actually...
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Who cares? We don't get any money anyway. But in that film, the main character or whatever it is, this is a really grape heavy episode. he's
Full
like
punnets, in fact, full punnets of grapes.
full punnets of grape. Yeah. So he goes into some room of some woman who's like is married to a gangster,
Okay.
and he then like doesn't realize that she's there. She walks in, he goes and hides in the closet the way that James hides in the little closet in this, and then the husband comes in and offers her a punnet of grapes, and he watches it through the closet. So that scene is apparently like basically them just replicating.
Has he got his
that
torch
in the
on
game.
at the time, like James does?
Yeah, that was dumb, wasn't it?
But I do have there is a point to
Just
that. We'll
fucking
come
just
back
put
to
your
later.
hand
Yeah,
over
just
it,
cover
mate.
it up.
Yeah. I want them to see me. I'm watching and I want them to know. Also, 5G gives you COVID.
Right. Next up, we've got Maria. So.
Oh, Maria.
Marie. There's a good Green Day song called Maria.
I thought you were going to sing that other one then.
What's the other one?
Maria. Is that fucking... You've got to see her. What song is that?
Don't know.
Yeah, it's terrible. There is a Green Day song as well.
The Xbox version of the game has some exclusive content called Born from a Wish. This is a short story that explains Maria, allegedly. I want to buy that, but it's so expensive.
How much is it?
About 50 quid.
40 odd?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've spent
it's
more
the
money
price of the.
worse.
It's the price of the. Yeah, it's cheaper than the fucking PS5 one, and probably still better.
I think my next Xbox. Well, we'll come back to this. This is not the time for this. Maria is essentially born from James' perfect image to what he wishes Mary was. I actually wondered if she's in this DLC or sort of extended cut. Apparently, she just sort of pops into existence. I wondered if she pops into existence when Mary dies. That was kind of
Maybe.
my wonder. That's sort of the moment of death. Because basically he sort of begins sort of constructing memories of her. Anyway, she's essentially another creature from Silent Hill. However, unlike the other creatures in this DLC, I keep calling it DLC, it's not DLC, in this extended cut, she seems to be self-aware and initially wakes with no memory of who she is or how she got there. As the added content progresses, she spends time interacting with what seems to be a ghost. It's basically a voice through a door that she can't get in.
Yeah.
But written all over the walls of the building is "Don't go in. This is haunted" or something like that. So yeah, he's definitely a ghost looking for some medicine to save someone. Yes, this is like to save the ghost's daughter. I know, upsettingly, she gets sent to look for some white liquid, which I was like, oh, is this sperm? But there was no mention of that in my research, so maybe not. By the end of the content,
Please no.
No, she has remembered some things about who Mary was, and then goes off to become who James meets when she arrives, because the vulnerable, I don't know who I am, Maria, in the added content is very different from the self-confident, self-assured person that he meets at Silent Hill when he gets there. You could actually make
the argument. Of course, that's actually his mind's doing, I suppose.
Exactly, yes.
She's moulding to fit the form that he wants her to.
Yeah, exactly right.
All the town is moulding her for him.
Mm-hmm. You could make the argument that she's the real antagonist of the game, which we've already kind of covered. At certain points, her mask slips and she shows flashes of extreme jealousy and possessiveness. She's killed by Pyramid Head, as said, 3 times in the game. Each time she comes back, she seemingly is slightly more sinister than she was before. So the first time he kills her, it's when you're both getting into a lift and she sort of grabs her and takes her away.
Dead Space 1, yeah.
Yep, that was exactly what jumped to my mind when that happened. Pyramid Head then seemingly plays defense on you again and kills her probably again when you find her dead body in the cell after you meet her in the prison, and she's got the injuries that look like Mary's on her face. And then, did you not encounter that?
No, did I miss that?
Potentially, I don't know if it's.
You have to go look at that.
Yeah. So you basically make your way into the prison cell. I don't know if you get it open, but you end up in the prison cell with Maria, and she's dead lying on the bed at the back of the prison cell.
She was just gone when I think.
Oh, interesting.
Is that where you leave her when she's injured, or is that later?
Yeah,
That's
so
later, isn't
you
it?
go down that steps, and then you meet her in the prison, and she's really weird. And then you go away, and
Yeah, she's like sitting on the
and then when
seat on the
you
other
come
side.
back later, she's dead.
Oh, I didn't go back later.
Oh,
You don't have to go back.
Okay.
Which again, if you do go back, it pushes you, I think, towards the leave ending, the worst ending. We'll get to that, but it's the worst. That's obviously the worst ending.
And the final time he kills her is right in front of you with a spear, just stabs her right through.
Of course he does, when she's hanging up there. Yeah.
Each killing apparently is serving as a reminder that she isn't real and that James has to face up to what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently Maria is also a Latin derivative of the name Mary, or maybe it's, I guess, the other way around, because Latin's the older language, so Mary's an English derivative of the Latin word. Yeah. Mary's a great character. Really quite scary.
Maria?
Maria is a great character. Maria? Yeah, Maria is a great character. She's just, I don't know, she is quite seductive, and she's also just like quite simultaneously intimidating, and like you're like, there's something not right about you, but I can't quite stay away, which I guess is the whole point in her. I really like her as a character. I think she's excellent.
Yeah, it's almost like a sort of careful what you wish for, or see what you've got, or see something in the people that are close to you that have real value, rather than this superficial value that you may desire them to have instead. It could be something trying to draw that about it. They always talk about how, like, men want what is it, like a housewife in the kitchen and a porn star in the bedroom or whatever. It's kind of like, but well, I mean, most of us are just too old and just want to go to sleep at a reasonable hour.
Play some video games.
Yeah. We'll just we don't need any Marias in our life anymore, boys. She is great. I just love how you can affect the endings with your interactions with her, like how often you check on her and all this kind of stuff.
I think that's amazing.
Whether you accidentally hurt her, it's so good. Yeah,
I find them all very interesting. And I guess, like with art forms that speak to you and that are quite powerful, you can only sort of draw from your own experiences. And I don't think they listen to this podcast, but I hope they don't mind me talking about this in the abstract. But I've got a friend who had a boyfriend that had a brain hemorrhage when they were very young. And the interesting thing about that, and the reason I bring it up, is that after this boyfriend died, the boyfriend almost became this sort of figure in this person's mind that just couldn't be topped. And so, like, obviously, like all human beings, we all have flaws, we all have good points, and we all have bad points. But then, like, when someone dies too early, in such a sudden and unexpected, sad way, the sort of memory of this person just sort of gets put on this pedestal. And I know for a lot of years, like over a decade, this person struggled to have other relationships because nobody could match up to this pedestal that this probably unrealistic memory of this person was on. And so the reason I'm talking about this is it's sort of like this with Maria sort of rang really true, because to me, like, Maria is almost like the perfect incarnation of what James wanted Mary to be, even though she was probably nothing like that. And I find it really quite an interesting, it made her a really sort of powerful and interesting character to me. And I think she's one of my favorite characters in the game, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's the having her be the extremes of that also ring true in that sense as well, in that often a desire like that, especially one born from the frustration that James would have been feeling on top of the guilt and the, just the desolation at the fact that his wife is now dying or dead. It's this desire for what Mary should be is going to go to an extreme that is not really tangible for a human being, because she's not very human-like. She's all over the place, as you say. She is clearly quite sort of mystical and odd and otherworldly. But I guess that's how I would have seen it as well. Is just he's gone to the full extreme of, God, I wish you could be like that. But no one actually does wish somebody could be like that, because it's just too wild.
Last up, I've done a combination of James and Mary together because I think actually when you start speaking about it, it's difficult to speak about them in the like sort of individually. So we'll just join them together. When Mary became ill, apparently she started lashing out at everyone she loves, including James, which again we've already touched on. This again we've touched on a lot of this, but I think it's important if we're going to talk about these characters to sort of touch on these things again. But this led to James visiting less and taking up drinking, which seems to have made Mary worse. Mary seems to have used that time he wasn't visiting to bond with another patient in the hospital, which we think is probably Laura. The dislike Laura seems to have for James is due to the jealousy for the times they spent together, as well as the occasions when James said he was going to visit but never did. James then smothered Mary with a pillow towards the end of her life. Apparently James brings Mary with him to Silent Hill and she's in the back seat of the car when he arrives, which is fucking mad.
Yeah, because it looks as if from, I think, one of those the in water, and he basically just picks her up after he's done her in and just puts her in the car straight away.
Yeah,
it's interesting as well that there's this whole like Japanese honor to this type of thing that is why they're so adamant that Mary is definitely in the back seat and not in the boot of the car, because they said that the developers and the art directors and stuff said that putting a corpse in the boot of a car is a lot more American Hollywood style to hide that you're trying to dispose of a corpse, and James is not that cruel and callous. That's not what he's doing here. He's taking her with him so that he can die as well and be with her in the afterlife. But it's interesting that his effectively is indicating that he has just picked her straight up off the bed, put her in the car, and right, off I go to the lake.
Yeah,
I'm done. It's over.
Yeah, I guess we can come. I don't know, maybe come to this now, but like, just no. We'll come back to that at the end. I'll come back to that. It seems that the letter James received from Mary was never written.
It's not written. No, it disappears later on.
Yeah,
from the inventory.
It's another delusion that he's created in his mind, which is why the letter, like I said, disappears towards the end of the game as James starts to face up to the truth of things. When development began, James was actually, this is the thing that I said we'd come back to later. James was actually meant to have two different, have a split personality disorder. He was supposed to have Joseph and James. Joseph taken from a name that some people think was Jack the Ripper, apparently. And apparently James is also a derivative of the name Joseph. So there's that. I don't know. I can see your face. I don't know. That's what I read.
Okay. The Jack the Ripper thing's quite interesting.
Yeah. Obviously, this never made it into the final cut of the game, but apparently sort of some of the weird apprehensive interactions that James has with different characters is a sort of unremoved manifestation of that. It's sort of the split personality character that we see that just got removed towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm glad that's gone. I don't think
that would have worked necessarily quite as well.
No. Because you don't need to pile that on top of a man grieving his dead wife.
Wouldn't have, and you can already see that. Like if they had gone with that, the final boss would have been James versus James, right?
Yeah,
or James versus Joseph. Whoever wins,
James versus Joseph. Yeah, I feel like there's something we've played recently that had something like that in it.
Oh, they love it. Even Mario's got the old fight yourself shit.
Yeah, but there was something. I swear there was something. Everything was just a part of a different personality, or no.
Almost certainly, you're almost certainly right, Alex. Yeah, it seems that James was suicidal at the beginning of the game. Again, something, Alex, that you've already touched on. And one of the reasons he came to Silent Hill was to kill himself, which explains some of the weird things he did. So he left his car open when he walks away at the start of the game. Just abandons it, leaves the door open, sticking his hands in all the holes that we spoke about, or down the toilets, doesn't wash his hands. Hiding from Pyramid Head, but leaving his torch on. As well as things like asking a visibly armed and agitated Eddie if he's crazy.
Yeah.
Then there's the jumping down holes later in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to Alan at the beginning that he doesn't care if the town is dangerous.
Yeah.
As the game progresses.
That's interesting, actually.
Yeah.
She knows it's dangerous. I wonder what danger she's seeing, because suggests that all she really sees is
The town
the
on
thing
fire.
of her dad and the fire.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Unless she should imagine if she was like, I wouldn't go down there, mate. It's fucking on. Have you seen it? It's a blaze, you dickhead.
Mate. Yeah,
Look at the flames, and he's like,
I guess.
I guess I don't. Yeah,
absolute understatement of the century, but it would be dangerous if you saw an entire town on fire and you went, "Don't go down there; it's dangerous." That's true, I guess.
And then some guy turns and looks at it and goes, well, I don't think I care if it's dangerous or not. Right. Just like, you don't care about that? About that fucking towering inferno? All right. Off you go. He's walking through he's not even caring. You're walking through the fire.
Yeah. As the game progresses, you discover that Mary died a few days ago, not the years ago that James seems to think at the start. Apparently, when you boil it down, and I think I agree with this, it seems that Mary and James had a generally strong and happy relationship until Mary became ill, and then it slowly fell apart. Yeah. So arguments, drinking, verbal abuse from Mary, their dreams of having children falling apart, which again, like, this is sexual frustration stuff.
I've heard that people say stuff about Laura being partly based around that.
Yeah,
like, we can't have children anymore. Frustration that here's a shitty little kid.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Here's your shitty kid. But yeah, eventually, as we've again already said, James began to resent Mary. Then when James killed her,
that whole thing rang true for me as well, because of a close friend of my wife's, her friend's husband is basically been diagnosed with terminal illness that apparently he still has like 10 to 14 years of life to go, and the nature of the illness being brain related has kind of made him already at this point quite aggressive. And there's that whole part of like 10 to 14 years is a long time to help somebody through being in that state and put up with it, sort of thing. So that whole thing about Mary and how James felt and how difficult it was to be around and be supportive for somebody like that, and how it must be difficult for that person themselves to know that they cannot help feeling desolate and lost and fucked off with everything that's unfairly happening. Just awful. So maybe part of the reason I found this game so unsettling is because, like you, there's tendrils into real life. I mean, there will be for a lot of people, because as I said earlier on in the pod, like, it's so fundamentally human, the horror of this game. It's just part of life for a lot of people, and that's why this game is so scary, on a deeper level than something like zombies are coming to bite us.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I guess if we're going to sort of discuss this, and like, again, we've discussed other people, we have to be prepared to discuss our own experiences of different things like that. And I totally get that. I mean, like, I don't think I've ever spoken about on this podcast, but about it was I don't think so. 2013, so now 11 years ago. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of blood cancer, and I totally get the feeling of. So when it's talking about, there's various things about how the sort of research I've done about this, it alludes to Mary feeling trapped inside her own body and feeling like she's almost rotten from the inside out. And like, often, like, when I suffer from a lot of anxiety when I was unwell, and like, the only way I can think to describe it is that you just sort of want to run away from it. But the problem is you just can't run away from your own body. You're sort of stuck in it. So like the stuff about the straitjacket, for me, and like Mary becoming, I don't think I was ever abusive, and I don't think I was ever nasty to anyone around me, but I certainly can relate to the feeling of feeling trapped in your own body and feeling angry all the time, and I don't necessarily feel that I can sort of judge Mary for the fact that maybe I mean, I don't think I did, but I wouldn't judge Mary for the fact that she turned her anger outward rather than inward. I totally get it and totally understand it and can totally sympathize with it. But at the same time as well, I've got vague memories of like, not vague, incredibly vivid memories of like my girlfriend at the time. Just, she would present so normal to me all the time. But then I would know fine well, because I would hear through the grapevine that like as soon as I wasn't in the room and she was around her friends, she would just be in tears and in bits, because like it was just so hard on her as well. And it is, again, like I massively empathized with, found myself massively empathizing with James in this scenario, because when someone has a terminal illness like that, it's not just the person that has the terminal illness. Ultimately, the person that has the terminal illness is the one that is going to die and has to deal with it. But it doesn't mean other people around them aren't affected. Some people are losing their best friends. Some people are losing people they love. Some people are losing.
Some people
children.
are losing a future with that person, and then they're dealing with the notion of life after that, when that's over, and how to move on and how to go on without it and deal with. So it's,
I mean, like,
it's
difficult in two different ways, because I often find that like when I was ill, people would say, "Oh, you're not alone." I mean, I don't know. Ultimately, you are.
I've had that said to me when I was going through all my anxiety stuff as well.
Because you're the person
people would say you're not alone. And
you're the person that's not going to exist. Everyone else that says you're not alone, they get to carry on with their life after you die. But at the same time, on the flip of that, when you die, that's it. You're done. Whereas everyone else has got to pick up the pieces of that shit. So I can see both sides of it. And I guess like that sort of stuff with Mary and James, just it's again like with what you said about your friend and their relationship, both my own experiences, your experiences, and also my friend's experiences that we spoke about. I think that's probably why this game speaks to me so strongly, because it actually feels quite. I think it's covered quite well. It's handled brutally, but those experiences
is the reality,
in life,
though, right?
Exactly, those experiences are brutal. And there's no that people we can sort of like dress them up and make them feel nice and fluff them up as much as we are, but when you're actually living through it, it's horrible and it's brutal and it's hard. And I think that's what this game portrays, and I think I respect it for that. I think that's why I like, again at the beginning I said it feels like a brave game, because it doesn't shy away from the truth of the situation.
I fully admire it for that. I think it elevates this game so much because of like I said, how unapologetic and uncompromising it is in its real depiction of very deep and strong elements of human life that are uncomfortable and hard. And to put it in a game that's as disgusting as this, and but still not have that message be lost. I mean, we'll talk about it soon. Obviously, the ending of this game is absolutely heartbreaking. I've never seen any ending of a game be quite as poignant as this one, but we'll get to that.
And we're talking about the dog ending, right?
Just devastating. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the way he speaks Japanese, awful. My teacher would be fucking fuming.
But like I say, so when James kills Mary, it seems to have driven him over the edge. So when you look back at the game, he seems to have been suffering from,
quite literally, driven over the edge. Yeah.
PTSD, that combined with the power of Silent Hill has caused all of these delusions that seem to have started. From the start of the game, James seems to be on a path of ruin or redemption, depending on how the players act, which leads us on to the endings of the game. But before that, again, we've kind of just had a good discussion there, but do you have any feelings about James as a character or Mary? Do you have sympathy for them? The only other thing that I've not said, and I've been sort of thinking about this for about 4 days now, about whether I will or won't say it. And I'll maybe it's better to just sort of present it without comment, because I don't want to be one of these podcasts that shies away from things, but also want to, I don't know, I'll just say it. I find it interesting that Mary's the one that had a terminal illness that, let's face it, it's probably some kind of cancer. Yet this game seems to spend its whole time trying to make us feel sorry for the man and the man who killed her.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I'm also not sure how I feel about I said this to you earlier in a text, sort of to bring that round through a loop. I'm not sure the general consensus when I was doing research about this seems to be that James is actually the bad guy. I'm not sure I believe that, because there's times in this game where Mary seems to want James to kill her, and I'm not convinced that this wasn't something that they both agreed that he should do for her.
Yeah. I think there's power in the misdirection of it.
Yeah.
So I think, as you say, the game on the outset, or at least on the surface, presents itself as if you are playing, the murder. You are playing the whole game as the guy who killed his wife. The way I think the way they deliver the twist is incredible, and then he immediately gets shit on for it afterwards. Once it reveals itself as, which does take some additional reading, or at least, reflection thereafter of what Silent Hill is and why it is the way it is. And then the ending kicks in with the way that that's presented to the player. Like, I think it turns itself round to make you both understand Mary's side of it and feel the sympathy for Mary that is deserved, and also the sympathy for James that is a different sympathy to what you feel from the beginning of a man who's lost his wife, needs to find her. Oh, that's terrible, poor guy. To oh Jesus Christ, this guy has gone through like unfathomable shit, and he's dealt with it in the worst possible way, but he didn't believe that's how it was the worst way at the time, and he's gone nuts and whatever. So I think, yeah, with the way that it twists itself into telling you what the real story of it is and how it then plays out for the rest of it, I don't hold that against it, like making you play as the guy who is effectively the bad guy from.
Yeah, to me, the game,
a base standpoint,
only comfortably makes sense if it's not that it makes sense, because it makes sense both ways. The game doesn't feel like it ties together in a neat bow unless I can sort of agree in my own mind that it was something that they had decided. And it's actually quite apt, because the assisted death thing is currently going through Parliament just now in the UK.
Yes.
To me, it ties up in a neater bow if maybe it's based on the again. Like, I know I'm doing half sentences, but it's because I'm trying to formulate my thoughts and struggling. But given the ending that I ended up getting with the game, it ties up in a neater bow if they had had a discussion and decided that she wanted to die and that he would help her. Whereas it's because he comes quite so neat if he just was like, I'm fucking pissed, I'm pissed off, I can't be arsed meeting you, seeing you. Because, I mean, like, unless there's something wrong with you, she's going to die. Like, just wait it out. Why else would you kill her unless it was something that they had agreed on?
Well, they have that conversation, don't they, where she sort of says,
yes,
I had told you that I wanted this. And he obviously is incredibly remorseful at that point and says, I can't believe I did this. But she does say, oh, I did. I don't know. Do you think she's too forgiving of him in that moment? Does that not make things?
It does.
Better?
But the thing that I struggle with is that, so there's a conversation when you're walking down a hallway in the game where she contradicts herself. So she'll be like, go away. And then he'll like start to leave, and she says, "No, I didn't mean it. Don't go away. I'm just upset."
Hey, we've definitely all felt that before. As well.
But
sure.
Again, like so it's sort of the messiness for me sort of arrives, and I guess it's by design. Is that like in my mind, I can create a scenario in which I can understand and sort of paint James out to not be a bad guy, but just be a guy that's grieving and has tried to help his wife in his final moments. But then there's also the confliction that constantly happens throughout the game where like Mary will say something and then say the exact opposite after. So then you're left thinking, did she actually want to die? Did she not? And I don't think it's
we can't really understand the thought process, right?
Right?
Yeah, because we're not terminally ill, so we don't understand how that must feel. But I bet it does swing like that.
Yeah.
It must do. It must go from feeling like you'll have positive days, you'll have terrible days where you feel like, oh, I'm just done with this. Just get rid of me because I'm, I've had enough of this. I'm going to die soon anyway. I feel like that, whether it does it with enough finesse or, that it could have been done with, it does definitely feel like it probably does quite a good portrayal of the absolute roller coaster of being in that process of terminal disease in a family. So yeah, I like I say, I like the way that it twisted it round to make you see what James had done and make James suffer for it, and he admit that he wanted to suffer for it and he deserves all of this guilt, and he's clearly racked with it. Just the only thing that goes against that is if you get the Maria ending, which makes him out to just be an absolute cunt. Because he's just like, fuck it, I just want to bang this shit out of you. And then off they go together, which is weird because she's a manifestation made by Silent Hill. So I assume once he goes off the fucking state line or whatever, she just goes, and then she's gone.
Well,
he turns and goes, what the fuck? Where'd Maria go?
We do cover that.
And then
we do cover that.
Oh, okay. Okay, go.
So yeah, I guess we're on to the endings now. So this is probably the good time. What we'll do is we'll maybe run through the endings and end. I think we got the same ending.
Yeah, because you have to really try for anything other than that.
Yeah, so
I think
I'd be interested. Yeah, so we can talk about the endings. Let's get through them, and then we'll, I guess, talk about them. So yeah, there's a grand total of 6 endings in Silent Hill 2. There's 4 serious and 2 sort of jokey ones. 3 can happen in your first playthrough, and the other 3 can only happen in replays. Yeah. So there's the leave ending. So James rejects Maria, fuck off, David. James rejects Maria and confronts Mary and possibly fulfills Mary's wish to adopt Laura as his own. Body and car not happening. Well, I've written, I don't know why I've written that, but I've written that because apparently you get this from spending as little time with Maria as possible, listening to the recording, and looking at Mary.
As you know, I didn't even bother to go look at her in the prison again, so absolutely ignored her.
Yeah, so that's the ending we both got, right?
Yes, leave, yes.
That falls apart when he takes Laura to the car and there's a fucking corpse in the car. And the fact that, like, the police are sure...
She was looking for Mary too, right? I know where she is.
Found her. Apparently, like surely the police are looking for James because he's run off with a dead body. At the very least.
Well, she was at home, though, so it's not like he stole her from the hospital anymore, that she'd come home to see him.
They conceivably don't even know she's dead, so you could take her home, stick her back in the bed and say...
she expired. That's why you sent her home, right? You knew it was going to happen. Because smothering with a pillow will get away with that.
That ending falls apart when Laura gets in the car and sees a corpse. Because
unless because that's only a theory that she gets adopted by him, right?
Yeah,
I mean, potentially,
you do see them leaving.
They just go look at the grave and then
together. So yeah, they might. Well, you're right, in the grave. So James might just abandon an 8-year-old unsupervised on her own.
Yeah, or he might be like, "Hey, look, I've got Mary. Do you want to have a go at burying her?
Yeah,
we are in a cemetery." And then they do that, and then off they go.
Yeah, that ending. I like the ending, and I like the idea of the ending. It is hard to tie up in a neat bow.
Yeah, you're right.
Being in the car.
Yeah.
There's what seems to be the sort of general consensus of the designers who made the game's ending is the in-water ending. So
yeah,
you fight. So James fights Maria to the death, then gets in his car and drives into the lake, presumably so you can be with Mary again. To get that ending, you've got to keep your health low all the time, as much as possible. Check the knife once you take it from Angela. Read the patient's diary and the second letter to James, both conversations and read the patient. Oh, and listen to both conversations in the hotel.
Yeah, you've got to also have an attachment to Mary whilst also being suicidal. I think is the way you've got to put those two bits together.
There's the Maria ending. He confronts an angry Mary who is not happy that he killed her. She's understandably furious. Maria then comes back and James leaves with Maria. As you're leaving with Maria, apparently Maria starts coughing, suggesting that she's suffering from the same thing as Mary.
Yeah, he does say, you need to go get that cough checked out in a really just cold way.
You can keep Maria alive by visiting her, keeping her safe from monsters, and not listening to Mary during the Lakeview Hotel sequences. So that's how you get that ending.
Yeah.
Then there's also the rebirth ending. In your second playthrough, if you complete the game with 4 special items in your inventory, you'll be treated to the rebirth ending. Once you have all those items, you kill Maria as normal, and then he takes her to the church cemetery to almost try and get her to come back to life.
Yeah.
Again, linking
The
back
old
to
pet
the thing.
cemetery.
The thing back at the start. And then the last 2 is the dog key ending. So James will discover a dog that has been controlling everything in the game, and then he'll just sort of go on all fours and get licked in the face by the dog. And then there's a UFO
with hilarious end credits as well, just like stupid dances going on and all this kind of nonsense.
I'm going to have to Google that after this. I have seen it before, but I want to see it again. I've not seen the UFO endings. That's what I want to see, both of them. It's a continuation from the UFO. Are there more UFO endings in other Silent Hill games?
There might be.
Oh, I hope
there might
so.
be.
A continuation of the UFO ending from the first Silent Hill. This ending contains the main character from the first game, Harry Mason. The game director feels that this. Oh no, that's different. But yeah, so I need to go watch that.
Yeah, because like I said, it genuinely is his PS1 model talking to James from the game. It looks so funny,
so good.
And the last, it's all like it's not as fleshed out as the dog ending, which is like 4 seconds anyway. But this is all like still frames, effectively trying to tell a story. But the last frame where there's an alien and Harry carrying James away, and there's like Harry turns to the alien and it gives like a thumbs up, and the alien's got this massive grin on its face. Is fantastic. It's an incredible image. You will very much enjoy seeing it.
How many more years of Summer of Resi do we have in us until we've run out of games that we want to play?
What, so you can do Silent Summer?
Yeah, I was thinking.
I don't know if I can wait that long.
I was like, well, Alex loves an alliteration, so
yeah. I don't know if I can wait that long. I've never played 3 or 4. So I need them. I need to play them.
Yeah,
badly.
I think I'm with you. I guess So what's your we know the ending you got. Did you like that ending? And in your mind, what's the canonical ending? Are you just going to side with the developers?
I think I am. Yeah, I think that has to be the way that it should end. And that seems to be his whole reason for going there in the first place. And that you don't have to do any more mental gymnastics afterwards either, like we've just discussed there, of what the fuck happens to Maria once you leave Silent Hill, or what happens to Laura when she sees Mary in the
it's also the fact that,
car. This one's just like, in he goes, that's it.
Totally agree with you. And it is because what I want to say is that I want to say the ending I got is the ending, because it's the most comfortable for me. However, you're totally right with the mental gymnastics. And then on top of that, when you actually think about it, like say if Mary had died 3 years ago, again, that ending makes more sense. If she's died like a day ago, like he has gone on some journey of grief and recovery in the space of 48 hours. Like,
yeah,
that's quick. Doesn't really feel, that doesn't feel real to me. Unfortunately, because I really want that to be the ending, because it's such a bleak game. Just a bit of sunlight at the end would have been nice, but
yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that's not. It's like I say, Maria ending is definitely the worst, because that just shows him to just be callous and
or just to me, that's the ending almost that he. Like how in the other 2 people that are the other Eddie and Angela, that they couldn't save themselves from Silent Hill. To me, the Maria ending is he can't save himself.
Fair enough. Yeah, he accepts it and just goes, right, come on then. Let's just get out of here.
Yeah.
You come with me and I'll deal with whatever you're going to do. My favourite ending is obviously the dog ending, because I think that is incredible that
it's
people
so
put that
good
in there.
That they put that in there. So funny. And it's so...
Yeah, it is genuinely hilarious that they did that.
I also just like the light relief of it, of the idea of it. It's just we get it. This game is endlessly bleak. Let's just chuck in something stupid and have fun.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's just brilliant. It's brilliant. It's genius.
Because again, maybe I'm overthinking this. Probably am, but it just sort of links back to the sort of humanity of the whole thing. Like these things, like not everybody's going to kill someone in their life. That's not what I'm getting at. But everybody's going to go through grief in their life.
Yeah.
And to be able to find humor in that, or to be able to find sort of light at the end of the tunnel, or in amongst all this shit, there are funny things that happen, and that's just human to me. And it just sort of speaks to me in that way. And I think it's quite a nice addition.
And it's also like, again, it goes back to me talking about extremes earlier on of, Maria being the extreme of James's desires for Mary. Yeah. This is like almost the extent going to the extremes for video games being escapism, right? It's just like, oh yeah, sorry, you want these to escape all the horrible things in life? Have a look at this fucking dog. There you go. You want this? There you go. We did it. There's some escapism, you dicks. Oh, I really like that. It's almost a famous sort of a slap Japanese in the face
dog as well.
It's Shiba Inu,
Grey Friars Bobby.
Yeah. So it's just fantastic. What a great idea.
Which is a nice sort of link to my last point about this game, which is the legacy of Silent Hill 2. So Silent Hill 2 is often considered to be one of the best horror games and one of the best probably video games of all time. I've got a list here. It ranked first on XPlay's list of the scariest games of all time in 2006. In 2009, IGN listed it as one of the 5 best horror games created after the year 2000 and one of the 12 greatest PlayStation 2 games of all time. It ranked again in IGN's list of top 100 PS2 games, and again in 2018 on IGN's list of the 100 greatest video games ever made. In a retrospective written by GamePro, it was 26th on the best PS2 games ever made. And in 2008, Games Radar placed it on its list of the 15 best video game stories ever, describing it as a punishing tale not easily matched. I found like an absolute fucking raft more of examples like that, but I think I've made my point there.
Yeah.
Alex, now you've had time to let it settle in and marinate in the game. I won't ask you to rank it specifically, but where does sort of sit in sort of the conversation of the ilk that we've just spoken about? Things about like importance to the medium, importance to storytelling in video games, importance to gameplay, game design, the horror genre. Like, what is this an important video game, or are we getting carried away?
No, definitely not getting carried away. We're it's hugely important in so many ways, like in terms of psychological horror, in terms of writing, as you said, and like metaphor and subtext and tackling human issues rather than just being shooting stuff for the lols or whatever, like video games so often were. And I guess, credit to Konami, because the teams that they had around this time where they were making Metal Gear Solid and this, and telling some of the most profound and thought-provoking stories that gaming had ever seen, and pioneering that type of storytelling in games where you've got this misdirection and mystery, and it's not telling you the whole story, and you're left to kind of read up after it, and people discussing certain things in this game for decades afterwards. Like it is an incredible piece of work that isn't necessarily that enjoyable to play, but I deeply love this game. I think it's absolutely amazing. As I said earlier, for me it is the best horror game ever made. Obviously, I prefer some of the Resident Evils, and they are survival horror. It's not the best of those, because survival horror for me is more about inventory management and more action to it than this, which is probably the weakest part of the game. Is the combat in it. It's quite easy. I didn't play it on hard, I played it on normal, but
I don't think I agree with the general consensus in the sort of gaming population at large that the game's clunky. I never felt like I was clunking around. But I do agree with you. The combat is probably the weakest part of the game. It's probably it's one of them. I'm trying to think of there is a very small list of games that have emotionally affected me, and for some reason, the one I always come back to, the two I always come back to, Mass Effect series really did for me, just really affected me at the end. I remember after you've but that was more through a recognition of what you had put into the game. So at the end of Mass
Yeah.
Effect 3, you sort of go around all the characters that you'd interacted through all these like hundreds of hours, and it was just that I found that emotional. And then there's the moment in The Witcher 3 where you go through again hundreds of hours with the characters, and then you save Ciri, and Ciri says that she's going away to go and be a royal or whatever, however she's going off to be a queen, isn't she? And it's the moment where you see Geralt sort of absorb that information that really emotionally impacted me as well, because it just felt like a gut punch.
Yeah.
It's just like this person that he, for all intents and purposes, sees as a surrogate daughter it's not that she doesn't love him, but she's making a choice to sort of go and live a different life, and that was hard. Try to think of other games that have emotionally, but I mean, there's lots and lots of games, but this one is the overused word, visceral. It's viscerally both disgusting and compelling at the same time.
It's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece, I think. Yes, I think that's probably the best word you can give for it. And
it's a seminal title.
Do you know what is a real shame, actually? And I think we're about to find out in other subsequent podcasts, is that this is a game that, like, the first Silent Hill seems to be fine, as far as I understand from its era. Silent Hill 2, masterpiece. I'm not sure Silent Hill ever, in no, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, whether it's a game, ever gets near the heights of Silent Hill 2 again.
It doesn't. No, it definitely
Which
doesn't.
I think is interesting, because you've spoken about sort of the obvious also unfair comparison of Resident Evil, in that Resident Evil has got a choppy history, but there are games that will hit the heights again and again and again. I don't think Silent Hill has, as a property, has ever hit the heights. It does the old, in my mind, Star Wars treatment, in that more than half of the Star Wars movies, in my opinion, are bad. So you cannot see Star Wars as anything other than a bad franchise. I think, I don't mean to be nasty or brutal, but I think like most Silent Hill stuff is bad. It's just Silent Hill 2 is such a masterpiece that every time a Silent Hill 2 game comes out, you've got to pay attention to it, because there's one game.
And they know it, which is why they just made 2 again. The problem of, I think, that Silent Hill has is that when you strike a chord like this in this genre, and you focus solely, not solely, but your focus is so strongly towards the writing, the meaning, the subtext, the story, the psychology of it. If you can't hit that height again, or if the games industry moves away, or the trends towards a certain type of thing, you cannot, like Resident Evil does, reinvent yourself over and over again, because then you're straying too far from what your magnum opus is, which is this game. And that is what Silent Hill has actually done, and it's strayed too far into other, at least focal points that it's adopted have been too far away from what this was. Whereas when Resident Evil has done that, at times it has absolutely fallen on its ass, but when it did it with things like Resident Evil 4, and then did something completely different with Resident Evil 7, and now it seems to become this kind of, like with Village, as you've mentioned before, just sort of a celebration of all types of horror just crammed into one game. Like, Resident Evil has successfully reinvented itself multiple times. Silent Hill almost can't do that. It doesn't. It's not set up to be reinvented. You can't reinvent this wheel again, because it's too specific a wheel.
Do you think it's almost hoisted by its own petard? In that,
exactly.
And like we spoke about how Pyramid Head keeps making comebacks in subsequent Silent Hill releases. It's almost like it knows it's peaked, and it's sort of got a simultaneous recognition of what made it what it is, but also an inability to move away from that. Like we spoke about before, like Pyramid Head was James's. In a pure Silent Hill world, we should never see Pyramid Head again, and they should have moved on to tell a different story. But they're almost sort of stuck having to give continual homage to Silent Hill 2 because of how important a game for its IP-ness that was. Does that make sense? That was a terrible sentence, but hopefully I get my point across. Maybe
Yeah,
one
you
of the worst
can't-
sentences I've ever constructed in my head.
Yeah, but it's like you can't. If you've made this effectively this piece of art in a world of comic books, like you've made an oil painting in a world of comic books. And then you can't blend those two worlds together and make it effective. You have to stay in that lane, and they haven't done it enough. And if they have stayed in that lane, they obviously haven't bettered this in terms of what the pure essence of Silent Hill is. They haven't bettered that, and when they've drifted towards the more schlocky B-movie camp that Resident Evil does like effortlessly at this point, they failed there, and now they don't know what they want to do
Back
anymore.
to the old gaming industry being reactive and stop chasing things. Be your own,
and also
your own thing.
Yeah, and also it's Konami that's holding the reins of it, and they're fucking terrible.
What the fuck are they going to do? But yeah, you're totally right though. In like Silent Hill, the town should be the character. It is the constant through. It should be the constant through all the games, and it is. But it just feels unable to sort of leave people like Pyramid Head and the nurses behind just because they're so iconic.
I mean, are they even all set in Silent Hill? Is it hoisted again the way Resident Evil is, where the only Resident Evil game in a residence is the first one?
I don't know. I guess we're going to have to dig into Silent Hill and
all the other
discover.
ones in Silent Hill, or is it just that's the name of it? So off you go.
We're going to have to dig in now, mate, and find out. We're going to have to do some on the ground reporting from Silent Hill.
You know what I'm going to look for now, because I apparently need reasons to play old games that have to be at least slightly SEO relevant. Silent Hill 3 is a 2003 game. Well, we're fucked then, aren't we? Until 2028.
You're going to have to do some mental gymnastics to find a way to get that. I just think, I think maybe next play it, mate. I'm not.
Next
as,
Spooktober. I don't know if I can wait a year for Silent Hill 3. Maybe a year is probably a good idea. I don't know.
I don't know.
Calm down.
I don't know. Feel free to cut this from the podcast, but like I appreciate your propensity to try and tie the games we play to a certain milestone or anniversary, but I think if we've got a gap in the calendar, just play what you want, and if we want to play it, we'll play it, and we'll like you say, we're not making any money from this. If you want to play a game, play it.
Sounds as if Silent Hill 3's protagonist is the daughter of the guy from the first game.
So we're going to play the first game.
I don't want to play the first game.
I don't want to play the first game either, but maybe I can poke at it, get a good understanding of it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like playing fucking the Silent Hill, the Resident Evil where you play as Mold Boy's daughter. If you've never played as a Mold Boy, that doesn't really make any sense.
Opens with Heather's nightmare of being trapped in a derelict amusement park.
The one I want to play is Silent Hill Downpour. Which one's that?
She can leave the shopping mall. It is in and return home to her father, Harry Mason. Harry Mason is the guy from the first one, right?
Harry Mason's the first one.
Yeah, but there's no tie into the fucking second game, so I think we'll probably be okay. What was your question just then, sorry?
The one I want to play is Silent Hill Downpour. That's the one I want to play. I hear that one's quite good.
Really?
Maybe I'm misremembering.
I think that's the one that's like pissed the least amount of people off.
So it's not actually good. It's just threaded the needle of not annoying anyone.
I mean, I've just Googled it and seen somebody say, is Silent Hill Downpour really bad, or is it more hate from the fan base? So Downpour is easily the best of the American-made Silent Hill games, apparently. But Metacritic is 64.
We're going to have to make a list of Silent Hill games and sort of make a plan of action. Alex.
Yeah, I think so. We need to, This will be figured out.
Yeah,
at some point.
Figured out. But the next game we're going to play is not a Silent Hill game. It's going to be Halo 2, Alex.
Yeah, we've already had a bang on it last night, and
did.
a bloody good time we had.
Oh, I love Halo 2.
I love Halo 2.
love
Halo 2's got a
most
bad
Halo
rap,
games.
hasn't it?
I think it's controversial because it does the old Metal Gear Solid 2 thing and does the old bait and switch where you don't play a lot of the game as who you're expecting to. You play a lot as the arbiter.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now people have got a bit of chill. It's looked back on quite well. The only bad thing through memory, and as we're discovering, my memory of the Halo games is pretty good, even if I do say so myself.
It really is. You were like just calling all the stuff that was going on, and I just didn't. It was just. It's just basically a new game to me last night.
The ending is bad.
So the ending is terrible. That's why people hate on it.
It finishes on a massive cliffhanger.
Yeah,
and just fucks.
But the actual moment-to-moment gameplay so far has been outstanding.
Yeah,
and the Halo 2 anniversary fucking cutscenes are mind-blowing.
They're ridiculous.
For 10 years old, they're unbelievably good.
We were actually questioning, like, have these been redone again since they were redone, because they look so good.
Can this really have been done 10 years ago? Yeah. This looks amazing.
And the other thing,
some of it looks better than anything I've seen.
The other thing I thought was amazing, and I don't know why I thought it was so amazing. I just assumed it would be the same. But like you were talking about, like, the music in the section that we played last night with where we're just flying around the Banshees.
I see people hate the music. Apparently, I didn't realize that.
When you press select, the music completely changes. Like totally
different to an Incubus song, apparently.
Is it Incubus?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, the original was Incubus, and then this one, apparently, I saw somebody suggesting it was by a guy called Misha Mansour, who's in the band Periphery, I'm a very big fan of. Which explained why I was loving it last night when I was talking to you. Like, oh my god, this is great.
I mean, because you were like, this is so good. And I was like, yes, good. You were
I went and listened to it like loads afterwards. I was just sat there with little Apple Music up and like, oh, this is great. And then read that people don't like it.
Yeah,
very weird.
I'm not sure I'm on board with them, but I'm also not on the Alex wagon either. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Don't mess with what people love, right? No one wants anything to change.
Yeah, well, that's it. They want their game to be better, and they want a sequel to be better in every way, but be the same as it was before.
Yeah, I think we could probably be accused of that as well at times. Me especially.
We're video game fans, man. Of course we are. We're as guilty of everything as everyone else is.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Halo 2 next, baby. Get on it.
Cannot wait. But yeah, you've got a holiday to get done in between that.
I've got to Spain now. Yes, after all this,
might be a short.
I'm leaving Silent Hill to go to Spain with Maria. See you later.
Hopefully it's not. Probably won't be foggy in Spain.
Going to rain apparently, but I don't think we're staying. I don't think we're staying on the plane, so I assume we'll avoid all of it. Well, it's like Moreira area, so it's like near Valencia. It's like southeast coast. Spain. We're flying into Alicante airport, so it's around
near
there.
Valencia when I was on holiday. Where was I? I'm sure I was. Because the reason I'm saying that, I'm looking at a map right now and trying to figure out where the fuck I was. It was definitely along the coast because I was on a cruise. I got to a bridge, and there was a sign to Valencia. It was like Valencia this way. So I'm trying to see where it was, and I just cannot see. But yeah, I was near there. So you can, when you're there. Wait, what does the Valencia home top look like?
Valencia have one of the coolest badges in world football.
So I will argue if we're talking badges, and it continually confuses me. So my Italian football team is Roma. Roma have different badges and different tops, and I'm confused by that.
But a lot of teams have been doing that recently.
There's a top where they've just got a wolf on there, and I big fan of the old.
I need to get an Italian team. I need to find out where my Italian heritage is from and support whatever team is closest to that, I guess.
Mine just came from, like, essentially, it was cruising, and we had like 3 Italy stops, and I just liked Rome. It was just so good.
Yeah. I do like the color of Roma's kit. I've always enjoyed that color palette that they have for that. What an odd way to end a Silent Hill podcast. So it's because I'm going on holiday.
Yeah,
I wondered how we got onto Roma shirt.
If you find don't go looking for it. But if you find yourself in an area where you have easy access to a Valencia top, find out what the price is and let me know, and I may transfer you money if you've got space in the old suitcase to bring me home a top.
Oh, I definitely have space in the suitcase, and I can probably find you one off the old Bossman dudes at the who line themselves along the beachfront in their very menacing.
Yeah, the game I used to play with myself is whenever I went to a foreign country, I used to try and find like a local football team top and buy it and take it home. And then like when football tops just started becoming about £100, that I just couldn't keep up.
No, so that's why you use DHgate, mate. That's why. That's where you go. Anyway, get them all off there.
I guess that brings us to the end of another Winners You podcast. Yeah. If you liked what you heard, and even if you didn't, why not give our numbers a bump by subscribing to our podcast on your podcast feed of choice? Or if you prefer to consume your podcast in a visual format, you can head on over to YouTube and search for a Winner Is You podcast where you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If the podcast isn't enough for you, you can also follow us on the website formerly known as Twitter at Winner Is You Pod. And you can even send us an email to tell us how wrong we are about our gaming opinions and maybe movies by writing to winnerisyoupod@gmail.com. Alex has not Twitter at SuperThrillix. And I don't know what I have. I've got Twitter. I made a Blue Sky account. It's probably my favorite app of the lot, but the news.
No one's on there?
No. Well, so people are on there, but news sites, celebrities, and stuff like that aren't on there. So it just makes it a bit of a So I don't think that's the thing. So I'm sort of veering back towards Threads again. But anyway, if you follow me on Twitter at Super Smiley, I've pinned a notice to the top. But I've given you my Blue Sky account and I've given my Threads account because I don't want to be on Twitter anymore. But I'm also aware, right, Alex, I know like this becomes a thing and this is the last time this is going to be a thing on our podcast and I'm just going to pick one and say it and move on from now on. I kind of struggle and I love the idea of Twitter. And I also think, right, I don't want to give Elon Musk any sort of coverage and I feel like I'm betraying my morals by being on Twitter. But it may also be true that Elon is a temporary custodian of Twitter and there may come a time, quite conceivably, that he's no longer there. Do you just sort of chow down and wait until he leaves? Or, I don't know. Anyway, find me on Threads.
I just don't really use it very much. I don't really use a lot of social media. I just kind of look at Reddit for stuff.
I need to do with
wrestling
I need to do an Alex and
ignore it.
Either get into Discord or start using Reddit. Do you know what the thing is I think I say it all the time, it's finding communities, and Twitter's quite good for following rugby games and finding people talking about games, and that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I just don't really care about what anybody says about anything. I just want news, and I only want people's opinions on things if they're a professional, aka about Tottenham.
So the fun thing is you should just do it for my sake. Next time you're watching a Tottenham game at home, say they're playing Spurs. Spurs are playing West Ham, sorry. Find out the hashtag for the Spurs West Ham game, and as you're watching the game, like click on this hashtag and follow people that are hashtagging it. It's quite fun to sort of follow people getting furious. And
I sometimes look at the Reddit match thread and that's basically the same.
It's probably the same thing, yeah.
But that's less like bot heavy. Like if you look at the Twitter feeds, I find it's normally just
bot heavy,
random accounts, just bot heavy. People just saying, "I love Cristiano Ronaldo" on a Tottenham thread. It's like, what the fuck are you on about?
So what I quite like doing is if like I'm watching a Scotland game at home in rugby, just follow the hashtag, and as you're watching the game, you can just see what people are thinking about the game. It's quite fun.
You should try the Reddit instead, because I'm sure Reddit will have a match thread for Scotland rugby, and then you're going to at least find people who have chosen to follow that on there and are probably real people, and then you're going to get a lot more out of it. Even though the Tottenham match thread on Reddit is usually just full on anger from minute one to the end, full of dickheads. At least they're not dickheads are there just coming on being like, banter club, bottle job, what trophy is this? Which is just pointless. It's just boring. It just makes me needlessly angry at the state of the world.
Just support Aberdeen now, mate. Like the Scottish Football League is
unbeaten.
Do you know what is so fun? Is that the Scottish League has the press surrounding the Scottish League has just sort of erupted into giddiness. It's because they've finally got some, like, because Celtic have just been sort of ruling the roost for the last 10 years. It's just boring, and like Celtic are in this odd position. I always think it would be suck to be a Celtic fan, because when you turn up and you play a domestic game, it's like, if I don't win 4-0, it's a disappointment. And then you turn up to Europe and you just get cunted by everyone. Yeah. So it's like they're in this weird position where they're too good for their domestic league and nowhere near good enough for the European stuff that they could try and compete in. And yeah, I just think it's like Scottish football, apparently, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I always hear from people that apparently per head of population, Scottish football is up there with one of the most followed leagues in Europe. And all that sort of fans of the league has been looking out for is just some competitiveness. And it's just nice. Like, ultimately, Celtic are going to win the league at a canter by the end of the league. Aberdeen don't have the squad, but it's just fun that everybody's been like, Aberdeen went an amazing run, and then everyone's like, oh, but Aberdeen haven't been tested. And they came up against Celtic, went 2-0 down quite quickly, and then just came back and almost won the game. Like, they scored a goal that got disallowed. It was controversial, to say the least. It's just fun that, Aberdeen have got a fun team now. And that was actually a good game. Apparently, people are just raving about it, saying for the neutrals, it was just a fun game of football to watch. And you can't often say that about Scottish football. It's usually an absolute...
Certainly not a home Celtic game.
No. No, I mean, realistically, I know I'm being dramatic here, but like in years gone by when Neil Lennon was manager and like Gary Hooper was up front for Celtic, like Barcelona were turning up and losing at Celtic Park. Like, that's a tough stadium to come to at the best of times, let alone when you go 2-0 down. To come back from 2-0 down, almost win the game, says a lot for that Aberdeen team. So feel free to cut that. That was just me ranting about football.
Up the dandy dons.
Yeah, up the dons. Alex has, we've done that. Any housekeeping, Alex, or are we getting out of here? What have you been playing for the podcast?
So for the Video Game Hall of Fame, we did an attempt at a Halloween themed episode where all the games had to feature pumpkins in them.
Oh, tough.
Yeah, I was the only one who picked a spooky game, and it was Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, good one. What did the others pick?
Because in the pantry of the what's it called? Lakeview Hotel, I was going to pick Mario Galaxy because there are Goombas that have pumpkins.
Oh, what's that?
But that was going to be my choice, and then I went into the pantry in the Lakeview Hotel in Silent Hill 2 and pressed A, and James said, there are apples and pumpkins here. And I took a screenshot of it to prove to the people on the podcast that, yes, there are pumpkins in Silent Hill 2. And I picked that. But the other choices are all just like Sonic games and stupid shit. So it's not a spooky episode at all, apart from when I'm talking.
I'm trying to remember the game.
But that'll be out now when you're listening to this, everybody, and there'll be a poll to vote on afterwards. So at VG_HOF on Twitter is where you can find all of that stuff.
Good man.
Not as spooky as this one, though.
I'm trying to remember Tim Schafer. I think it's a Tim Schafer game. There's a game that I like that I always bang on to you about it. It's a game set at Halloween. Costume Quest.
I know the one you mean. Costume Quest, yeah.
That's in for me because there's definitely pumpkins in that. That's my pick. That's such a cool game. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to play that one, yeah.
On that bombshell, I've been David, he's been Alex, and we have been I've out as you. Thanks for sticking with us because this was a tough one and a long one. And I'm out.
Yeah. Keep gaming. Stay calm out there or something.